OTB AM.
With Gillette, proud supporters of Movember. Gentlemen, let's move.
7:30, OTB AM, Thursday morning. You're very welcome along. It's Adrian with you this morning. Delighted to say I'm joined in the studio by the Irish Independent's Michael Verney. Good morning to you, Michael.
How are you, Adrian?
How are you getting on?
Good now, yeah, good.
Good to be back in the studio. We're still having these conversations where it's like, it's good to see you again after 2 years.
Yeah, it'll be fair. I'll get sick of seeing you fairly soon or something like that. We'll be sick of seeing people and we'll just hide away again, I'd say.
Yeah, no, I'm all for it, and been back in the studio, and it's absolutely fantastic. And a very good morning to you at home, wherever it is you're at this morning. We'd love to hear from you over the course of the morning as well. Really cool competition coming your way. In just a few moments' time, we'll let you know about that. But any thoughts you have about you watching the game last night, looking ahead to the GAA over the weekend, or indeed the rugby or anything else it is that's knocking around inside your head this morning and you want to get it off your chest, lash it into us, and we'll be delighted to bring it to our audience over the course of this morning. We were both looking at the Liverpool game last night. Fairly straightforward stuff. I was interested to hear Jurgen Klopp beforehand. Mickey was talking about I was expecting this game was going to be great intensity, absolutely for sure, great intensity, and it really didn't live up to the hype in that regard in the end. But like, even for all of that, 2-0, and obviously it was almost 2-1 at one point until that goal got ruled out. You thought, geez, we could be in for a rerun of the previous leg where Liverpool had been a couple of goals up and got reeled back in. But it was hard to know last night. Was it a case of Liverpool been like one of the best teams on the planet at the minute, and so just putting the squeeze on that Atletico team, or actually if they just weren't up to much last night?
Yeah, well, they put the squeeze on them fairly early and hitting 2 early goals and even just been reduced to 10 men. There was an insurmountable probably mountain to climb at that stage. But when Liverpool were good, particularly in that first half last night, they were very, very good. And the 2 balls even from Trent, they're so inviting, aren't they? They're such dangerous. It's nearly impossible to defend that, and they were impossible to defend at times. And even seeing Mane's power even again up close, even for the sending off, and even for one of the goals as well. They just have so many areas where they can hurt you, don't they? So many players that can hurt you. And Salah was probably off colour to some extent last night, but some of his touches were just amazing as well. Their ability to get on the front foot and, I suppose, put themselves in that attacking position so quickly and so fast, it's a joy to watch, in fairness. Yeah,
I did see somebody, a journalist who covers Liverpool recently, say that he was technically, I don't want to misrepresent what she was saying, but that he wasn't the greatest footballer that you've ever seen in terms of the touches and that he has, but his capacity to score goals is just off the charts. And also, I mean, look at Liverpool, the conversation about Liverpool at the minute about, and a couple of players limped off again last night, but it's about all the options that they have. And even looking at some of the analysis beforehand, like Michael Owen talking about the minor differences that you get if you pick Jota or you pick Firmino, and it's kind of an embarrassment of riches for them. Like, they do want to get this Salah stuff locked off at some point or another. He's out of contract, he's not out of contract, but they haven't agreed new terms with him. It's the only thing that I think could spoil Liverpool's season at the minute. Like that, they'll be in contention for everything they're in. Like they're a very impressive team. We'll see how it falls over the next while. We're going to be talking to Gareth Robertson a little bit as well about all of that. And I want to let you know as well that this morning live sport is back. It's really truly back, and we're delighted about that. And we have a couple of pairs of tickets to celebrate all that for Ireland against Japan this weekend at the Aviva Stadium. It's all with thanks to our friends over at Aldi. Aldi are the official fresh food partner of the RFU. Pick up the Irish Rugby Home Cookbook in aid of Bernardo's in Aldi today, so it's all in aid of a great cause. And to be in to win, we've Fiona Hayes coming up a little bit later on to preview the game this weekend and talk about everything else that's going on in the world of rugby. But to be in to win, send in your questions for Fiona, who's going to join us just before 9 this morning to talk about the game this weekend. And very simply, we're going to pick the best 2 questions. Each of them are going to get a pair of tickets for Saturday's game. So get your questions in. It's as simple as that. We'll let you know what's coming up now as well over the course of the show this morning. It is 7:35, and a very good morning to you if you've just joined us. We're going to Mick, since he's come in for the last half hour, has just been on repeat saying it's the busiest weekend of the club championship of the year, and so we're going to get knee deep into all of that in just a couple of moments' time. After that, Gareth Roberts from the Anfield Wrap reflects on events at Anfield last night, looking ahead to West Ham as well over the weekend. Sports pages, a couple of interesting stories doing the rounds this morning, included Damien Duff's appointment at Shelbourne, and some interesting quotes from him at 8:25 this morning. The sports news after that with John Duggan. After that, again, as mentioned, Fiona Hayes is going to join us to preview Ireland-Japan this weekend. A very special Movember item coming your way with Sean O'Hara, who's running 30 marathons in 30 days. and he's 4 days in. We'll be asking him what he's doing and why he's doing it, and both of those you'll want to hear, and that'll be coming your way at 9:05 this morning. And then at about 9:30, a bit of John Egan from the show talking to Joe last night, and some Barry Keoghan as well, who was in conversation with Joseph last weekend about the new Marvel. Are you a Marvel nut?
Not really, Adrian, now, to be honest with you. I'm a Barry Keoghan fan though, in fairness.
Yeah, that'll be enough reason to watch it. You are watching OTB AM. We're live with Gillette, proud sponsors of Movember. Gentlemen, let's mow. So that's what's coming up over the course of the next little while. And as I said, do lash your questions. Any comments that you have for us this morning, lash them into us over the course of the morning, and we'll get stuck into it. But we are going to go to the GAA to kick things off. Loads of stories across the back pages this morning, and loads of really interesting developments. Not only about the busiest weekend, Mick, in the GAA club calendar so far, which I presume is getting the juices going.
Big time, yeah. I think there's 15 county finals between Friday, Saturday and Sunday. We've kind of been drip feeding them over the last couple of weekends. There's been one or two here or there, but it all just really kind of takes off this weekend. I suppose we're in early November. Provincial campaigns are going to kick off in the next 3 or 4 weeks. So county championships need to get done at this stage, but some really, really juicy ones this weekend.
Do you get out and about to cover stuff, or are you?
Yeah, no, I do. Yeah, I'm at the Longford final on Sunday actually, and I think it's Mostrum's first county final appearance since 1992. They change manager mid-season. There's all sorts of always mad subplots going on in different club campaigns, and I think if you're following social media fairly closely and you see the passion and all the local commentaries, all these things, I think it's brilliant. It really is. It's obviously the grassroots of the whole, the foundation of the GAA, but it's just great to see it. And it is county championships during the summer are great. It is hard beat club, and every county player will tell you that too. When they go back, they would probably rank a club success as high as any county success. And there's a lot of really, really top players in action this weekend across all different codes.
Yeah, I see I have a young fella started going to Chemical Crokes over the last while, and they're obviously a super club. Is that how we officially sort of?
Yeah, one of the biggest clubs in Europe, I think. Yeah.
I think somebody was saying they're the biggest sporting club in the country, which is phenomenal. And I can see by it on a Saturday morning when there's 125-year-olds down there knocking it around, and like the whole thing is so well put together. I have to say they do an incredible job around it. But the buzz that's there at the minute with interest in both finals and the football obviously this weekend. And I'm from Athlone, and I was at there was a relegation / as it can only happen in GAA, you're either going into the quarterfinals or you're getting relegated. Game in Moat about a month ago that I went out to have a look at, and like it was the first time that I watched. COVID allowed me to watch one of the games. It was a Garry Castle game streamed last year, and it actually started me to get a little bit plugged back into what was going on back there, and that was kind of the reason I went down to see the game. I don't know I wonder is that everybody's experienced that we've all plugged back into a little bit of what's going on that level a bit more than we might have done beforehand. Yeah,
I'd say it's like anything. If you're denied something for a while, you have the the real interest to go back in and go to a game again. Now, in fairness, some counties have gone over the top with people actually wanting to get involved in games from the stands, which we've seen in recent weeks as well, which is probably a worrying aspect. At least we haven't seen that in the last probably 2 or 3 weeks. But I think, yeah, you should really be longing to get back for that. Like the adrenaline buzz of going to that. It's hard beat, like when you're going to a match where it's your parish, it's all the people that you know.
Yeah.
And there's no buzz like that. I even think like county games, probably outside of an All-Ireland final, there's no county game will represent that. You know everybody out on the pitch. You know what they're doing in their everyday lives as well. So I think a lot of people are tuning back into that, and there'll be a lot of big attendances at county finals over the next while.
Yeah.
The Kerry football final usually attracts 8,000 or 9,000. As you said, Crokes beat Coola last weekend, who were going for 3 in a row in the Dublin Hurling, and Paul Mannion, who is obviously, I'm sure people will be looking at him really closely with Crokes this weekend. They're playing Ballyboden, another kind of super club, but people will be looking at Mannion very closely this weekend. He's probably been the best club footballer in Dublin so far this year, and people will long for him to be back in the county fold. And I suppose that's the debate around this time of the year. Who's putting their hand up for selection for the county team? There's always that bigger picture in the background as well, and there are plenty of players. Even Kilmallock won Limerick. There's a couple of players like Oisin O'Reilly and a few more has put their hands up for John Kiley's squad maybe. So there'll be lots of guys putting their hands up for other county panels over the next while.
The few comments coming in. Would be nice for you to cover Celtic's Europa League games every now and then, not just Manchester United and Liverpool, including a yawning emoji. Good morning to your hobby on YouTube. We'll get to Celtic tomorrow. Aisling's going to be watching the game tonight, and she'll be chatting to us about that in the morning, so stay tuned for that. and Paul McGee talking about the hurling after a Champions League night. Really, he asks. Paul, sit tight. Will you sit tight? It's a long show. There's loads to come. We're going to do a deep dive on it with Gareth Roberts a bit later on, so sit tight. We did want to continue talking about the hurling and Henry Shefflin and his backroom team. I think everybody was keeping an eye on it after the full announcement had come, obviously, a couple of weeks ago, but not that surprising that it's a couple of Galway people that have come in and will know the lie of the land, I presume.
Yeah, no, I think Henry's made a couple of shrewd moves already. Bringing Richie O'Neill up with him, who was obviously with him in Ballyhale and was with him in Thomastown, is shrewd enough as it is. But then Kevin Lally, who was with Thomas's for I think 3 county successes, he brought success with Crockwell. He improved Kilnadine Leitrim when he was with them. The Galway Miners as well. He will basically be in tune with every player in the county over the last couple of years and has been probably plotting against most of them with Thomas's. And then you have Damien Joyce as well, who is a nice link back to the All-Ireland winning backroom team in 2017 and who's still playing with Capitagal as well, so he's coming up against most of these lads week in, week out in Championship. So I think there's been a couple of shrewd moves there. That's a fairly nice backroom team with outside voices and obviously the greatest player that ever played the game at the helm, and then 2 guys that really know the nuts and bolts of Galway hurling as well.
Are they going to there was the chat when Henry came in that they might have a chat with Joe and see if he'd come back. Do you see it happening?
I don't know. It's hard to know really. We chatted to Joe on the throw-in in I think it was the week of the All-Ireland final, and he definitely sounded like a guy whose mind was made up. Right. And he said, anyone that knows me, I'm a very stubborn individual. I won't be changing my mind. That's it now. But if the best hurler of all time talks to one of the next best hurlers of all time, can he change his mind? I'm not so sure. I think Joe stepped away at the right time for him. And it's going to be interesting. I don't know whether that conversation will take place.
Well, on that, if you're Henry, are you, so forgetting about Joe for a second, are you thinking, I need to make this call? Is it almost a bit of a no-brainer if you're Henry Shefflin?
Yeah, he could make the call and it could be off the table straight away. But then maybe he'll potentially light a fuse under Canning to think maybe I could come back at some stage next year. I don't think Joe signing up for the full inter-county campaign. I don't think that's a runner. But potentially maybe when the weather picks up, maybe he's the sort of player that you could bring in February or March. But that doesn't really happen at county level anymore. You're either all in or you're not in there at all. So listen, it's going to be interesting to find out over the next, has the conversation happened yet? I don't know. Thomastown were only out last weekend. Henry's club, Henry's team, they were beaten in the Kilkenny Intermediate semi-final by an Owen Murphy inspired Glenmore team. So I don't know, he hasn't had much time to focus on Galway. But you'd like to be a fly on the wall. You'd like to know what that conversation is like. Maybe is there a potential that he could be involved in the backroom team as well, Joe, maybe if he's retired, who has a better knowledge of all those players than someone who's soldiered with them for the last 10 or 15 years.
Yeah, I think that's part of the pitch. If you are Henry Shefflin and you do think that there's value to having Joe Canning back around the place, it is obviously partly due to the fact that he's one of the greatest hurlers of all time, and also the fact that he can have that leadership and that influence on the younger players. You'd have to assume that at some point that the text has gone out that obviously Henry's looking at games and particularly so at the minute, but starting to look at games and talking to his backroom staff, and the text has gone out like, Joe, how are you getting on? We should catch up for a coffee. If you're Canning, right, and you reply to that with anything other than I'm grand, you carry on, you have to assume that if you're agreeing to meet up, you have to assume that the window's open. Yeah,
well, I think it would pique anybody's interest that I wonder what this lad has to say.
That's the thing, isn't it?
Does he want me to come back playing? Does he want me to be involved in the backroom team? Does he want to just pick my brain because I've been in there for the last 15 years? Does he want to know what some of the potential difficulties are? It's going to be really interesting, but I'd be amazed if they don't have a conversation of some kind face to face.
Yeah. And I'd be amazed that if on some level that he isn't back in around the place doing something or other, you'd feel, and I think when you're a couple of months out from as well, and nearly as you say that he has made his peace with the fact that he's done, gives him a great freedom mentally to maybe after a few months out, you can skip the league, Joe, you don't need to worry too much about that, come back towards the end of it, we'll get you back embedded, and then he's a fresh slate and he's suddenly coming back in. And
he also said he's no interest in coaching or anything at any high level. Right. That he just wanted to work with the Portumna under 13s, under 15s. That's what he wants. That's what he said he wanted to do. But as we've seen in sport, things change quite quickly at times.
the succession planning in Galway has been really impressive. It's nearly like sort of how you would, if you tried to map it out in terms of the people that are involved there. You mentioned about Lally, three Galway senior hurling titles in the last few years. Like that's hard done in that county as well. And then looking down the layers as well, it's their succession is bang on here.
Yeah, and like Brian Hanley, who was the minor, he's a 2-time All-Ireland minor winning manager. He was involved, I believe, in the race for the senior job, and he's just stepped up to the under-20 job as well, which makes perfect sense. And maybe he'll be Galway senior manager in time, but Henry, I'm sure, will be linking him in with him as well. And like he's got a lot of people around him that know the scene really, really well, and he's got a lot of really, really good sounding boards. As well as that, then you have the outside voice coming in, and Richie O'Neill's outside voice coming in as well, that just maybe might look at things a little bit differently because they're not, right in on top of it, whereas the other lads are. Yeah. So I think they have a nice mix, I have to say.
A nice mix, but like impossible to make a case for them to get to the top of the tree next year at least.
On
the strength of Limerick, you're about to make the case, are you?
No, but I don't think anything is impossible. Like, they're the one team physically, even without Canning, that can match up very well with Limerick. Now they were only beaten by 3 points in the All-Ireland semi-final in 2020. Playing a sweeper, which didn't really suit them. I expect Henry to go back to brass tacks with them and them to play a more direct game like they did when they won the All-Ireland in 2017. We've seen things turn around very, very quickly with managers before. Ballyhale were beaten in a county semi-final and beaten quite well by the Village in 2017. Henry came in and they went on a 17-game unbeaten run and won 2 Kilkenny titles, 2 Leinster titles, 2 All-Ireland titles. So I wouldn't say nothing is impossible. He's not taking over, a county that's ranked 11 or 12 or anything like that. He's taken out a county that, in racing terms, they always put little asterisks beside a county that can improve a lot, or a horse that can improve a lot. There's an asterisk beside Galway where they could jump up from 7th or 8th in the pecking order to 2nd or 3rd very, very quickly. So I wouldn't rule them out turning things around quite quickly.
Yeah. Mark Dunning says, I think allowances might be made for Joe Canning coming in a bit later in the year. I think that's absolutely spot on, and we'll watch that with a bit of interest as well. His own Ballyhale Shamrocks going for 4 in a row against the Loughlin Gales, and they have a nice little touch as well. I see that you've said there about letting frontline workers in for free.
Yeah, I think it's a great gesture. It's probably something that should have happened in most counties, but all frontline workers, I think you'd have frontline workers from many different counties maybe streaming into Nolan Park at the weekend now. It's a standalone game as well. I think we just did a thing in the Independent today about county final ticket prices, so it's 15 quid, which is very reasonable, and obviously frontline workers get in for free. It was interesting to see no county was charging more than €20 except Kildare, who are charging €22 into their county final, which is an interesting one. And then there's another.
Well, Kildare, as we know, always see themselves as a little bit sort of hoity-toity, a little bit above the rest.
Your words, not mine, Adrian. I'm sure that's a quote at your colleague Ger as well, to be honest. But it's €22 to get into St Conleth's Park in Newbridge on Sunday, which is saucy enough in these times. The vast majority are 20, even with double headers, and many are 15 as well. But free attendance for frontline workers in Kilkenny is massive. You get to see TJ Reid, Colin Fenley, and many more. And it's funny, James O'Connor, who took over from Henry Shefflin, that's looks like a bit of a poison chalice. It doesn't look like what more can you do. They won a county title last year. They're hot favourites to win the All-Ireland already at this stage. So
it's crazy, isn't it?
Loughlin's have beaten them. They beat them in the county final in 2016. But that'll be an interesting one. I think that's on live on TG Carter Sunday as well. One of many games, one of many exciting games over the weekend. And I mentioned Kildare there. Kildare is a really interesting subplot this weekend. So I don't think Naas have won one county football title in about 30 years. But they actually parted ways with their manager about a month ago, I'd say, about a week before the semi-final.
There? Was it a bit...
not sure. It's a bit shady exactly what did happen. But Owen Doyle, the county defender, played international rules for Ireland as well. He's taken over in a player-manager capacity alongside Eamon Callaghan. So there's this would set some trend now if Naas are to win a county title with a player essentially managing them and picking the team. So they're coming up against Sarsfields, who are one of the big kind of Kildare strongholds. But that's going to be really, really interesting to see if they end the famine with a player manager at the helm. Maybe there's some sort of a trend that we'd see over time. Even though I'm sure coming in as a player manager near the end of the season is a lot different than trying to manage your buddies for the whole year or several years.
Well, you're at that point you're just in firefighting. Like there's none of this sort of great planning that has to go into it. But the point about the 22 quid thing and the 20 what so this is who runs these games? It's obviously the county board that are then obviously taking that money in, and theoretically it goes out around the county for, like, you're spending your money so you can like get equipment for your kids.
Yeah. Essentially, it would be going back into some of it would be going back into the development of Connacht's Park, I'd imagine, and then some of it would filter back down to the clubs as well. But like 22 does seem like adding on the extra 2. I think people don't, people just say, why can't it be €20? And it's not as if they have, an intermediate or a junior final as the curtain raiser. They have a minor final as the curtain raiser as well. So it's not a big marquee adult game. So I think there's been a bit of ire raised about that already, and I'm sure there'll be a bit more coming closer to the weekend. I always say you shouldn't be putting people off going. You shouldn't have people giving out outside, and that potentially could. Whereas there's some great deals, like the Monaghan final is 15 quid at the weekend. Like, you're getting really good bang for your buck there, and same with Kilkenny. It's
obviously the chase to get to 25, 30. It's the little creep. You can't jump straight to 25.
Yeah, potentially, yeah. I'd say they nearly would have been better off nearly jumping to 25 than leaving it at 22, because does anybody even carry coins around at this stage if you're going to the gate?
It's a good point. Although I presume they have, like, everywhere now has the little sort of... You buy the ticket. Can you buy the tickets down there? Depending on the game, I suppose.
Most places you're able to buy them online, and you can buy them on the day as well. But obviously you're going to be queuing if you buy them on the day. So I think that it's probably a good trend that they've set to avoid loads of people, waiting outside grounds if you just have your ticket bought. Might be something that might even continue over time. After COVID, it was obviously one of the effects of COVID.
Yeah. Was there anything else that jumped out from you on the survey? I was just looking at it there in terms of the prices. They do tend to. They're all pretty standard. Nobody's outside of Kildare jumping the gun too much.
No, there's some interesting ones in Longford. There's a €50 family ticket where 2 adults and 3 children, secondary school children, or below. So that's quite good, because you could have been shelling out up to 80 or 90 quid otherwise. So things like that are good. And even there's a wheelchair ticket in Longford for €10, and then the carer who is probably going to be with the person that needs wheelchair access is a $5 in.
That's
so I think that like those are good.
Smart.
There's a good incentives. You want to encourage people to go to the game. I think in Longford as well, by doing that thing with a family ticket, and like, you want to get kids at the match.
Yeah.
You want to. That's where they're going to probably get inspiration to want to go training next year or emulate their heroes as well. So I think that's a great idea.
And the games come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, of double headers, standalone games. The double header could be anything from the under 12s, B teams, to whatever's going on. But there's actually a really interesting one in Meath, isn't there, with a double header there as well?
That's brilliant. Yeah, no, we don't talk about the GAA in terms of joined up thinking too often. And obviously the LGFA and the Camogie Association are under a different umbrella. They're not under the GAA umbrella. But Meath this weekend have the senior ladies football final as the curtain raiser for the men's football final. And I think, especially in the year that's in it, like, to me, the Meath ladies were nearly the story of the sporting year, I have to say. And even, there was 4 of them on the Late Late Show recently going through the sports file pictures. I just thought it was brilliant, and I think they've really captured the imagination. And in fairness to the Meath Chiefs, they've kind of maybe seen a bit of an opening here by having, I think Dunboyne are playing in the curtain raiser. That'll be Vicky Wall, Emma Duggan, and lots more involved with the Meath team. And Dunboyne are playing then in the men's final as well. But I think maybe this has set the tone for what maybe other counties should be doing as well. We've gotten an awful lot better as regards coverage of female sports. Something like this, to have the women's final on the marquee day for the men's final as well. Like, there will be a lot of eyes on that. And I think a lot of tongues were wagging even when they just saw the way the fixtures were set. This has set the tone, I think, for other counties, and hopefully a lot of the camogie and ladies football finals will be given a lot more stature maybe in time, and put as double headers. I don't see any reason why they're doing it at county level, so I don't see why any reason why you wouldn't do it at club level now.
Will many of these grounds be sold out, do you think?
No, the county grounds usually, like if you're looking at somewhere like Laois this weekend, O'Moore Park would hold 25 to 30,000. You have to remember as well, there's a localised element to it as well. Like, there's only a finite amount of people within a certain area. Like, I live in Dunboyne at the moment, like, and it's there's a fair bit of it's a fair suburb of Dublin at this stage, but there's still not going to be 10,000 people from Dunboyne or anything like that at the match. I don't think there are anything close to that in Dunboyne. But the vast majority of people associated with that town or that village will be at those games.
Who's in the men's final?
It is Dunboyne and Wolf Tones.
All right.
Yeah, so Dunboyne won it a couple of years ago, and Rathode, I think we're going for 3 in a row this year. But it's I suppose the sign of a competitive county championship, and Tyrone is probably the best example of this, is having like a different winner nearly every year. I think this year is probably going to be something similar again. You don't probably want, like what Ballygunner are doing in Waterford, winning 8 in a row. You probably want it spread out. You probably want loads of teams thinking that they can win their county title, and that's probably the way in Meath, and it's probably the way in several other counties as well. What
we touched on the Dublin final earlier on. What's your expectation of what happens? Are the semis this weekend? Is it?
Yeah, semis this weekend. Yeah, so Crokes and Bowden's going to be a fascinating game, and I says a lot of boys, as I said, a lot of boys will be on Paul Mannion, and obviously Colin Keeney is still going strong with Ballybowden as well. That's a big derby game. And then you have Judes on the other side of it as well, Kevin McMenamin, who we didn't see anything really of him with Dublin this year, and his involvement with the Irish Olympic boxing team as well. So it's going to be fascinating on the other side of that as well. There's so many different subplots going on too in Dublin. There's a lot of questions probably been asked after the Mayo game this year. I don't think Michael Darragh-Macaulay's playing with Ballybowden this year. Kevin McMenamin didn't play with Dublin this year. Paul Mannion didn't play with Dublin this year. Jack McCaffrey wasn't involved this year. And you just wonder about the conversations maybe that are happening in the background.
Do you think there's a realistic chance that like the likes of Mannion, what age is he?
Mannion is, I think he turns 29 very soon.
So
I think.
plenty.
Oh yeah, he's in phenomenal shape as well, and he probably set a precedent for himself and maybe for others as well. He took a year out and went studying in China, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and was able to slip back in. I remember him saying he got sick in the sink in Croke Park one night after playing half of a league game, just because he was reacclimatising or whatever. But there's no reason why someone like that wouldn't be able to get back into he could have 4 or 5 years left at intercounty level if he was to get back in. These are all the fascinating questions that go on in the background. Like we all see Dublin against Mayo last year. The casual supporter will wonder, where's Paul Mannion? And that's happened months before that. So in order for him to be playing for Dublin next year, those conversations need to happen probably now, and they need to try and make sure they have as many of those guys on board. And I'd imagine they'd have a massive point to prove next year now as well. A lot of people are saying that their time is finished. That's after doing what no other team has ever done in 5 in a row, and then in 6 in a row as well, and now all of a sudden they're beaten and they're finished. It's like the overreaction, and it's what you just wonder, what is Desi Farrell and what's his backroom team doing to make sure that they're the kingpins again next year.
Well, you sure? Like, I'm assuming that when things are going so well, you don't want to overly meddle with what's going on, but as soon as it comes off the rails slightly, I mean, off the rails is an extreme exaggeration, but slightly derailed. That at that point, it's like, let's get out and have a look at this Mannion lad. He's still plenty of years ahead of him if he wants to give it, and if he's flying in the club championship, sure, you couldn't but put it back in. A few other bits and bobs that we want to touch on around the country this weekend, and some of the other bits of news that are coming through on the Cork Hurling backroom shuffle as well. Ger Cunningham and Christy O'Connor have moved out of there. He's obviously looking to shake things up a bit. And Gary Keegan, I know it is one of those that's come back in, and he's obviously somebody that will deal with them on the motivational side, suggesting that Cork feel as if they have the technical skill, quality of player there, I suppose, to compete, but that and unusually from a Cork point of view, that the attitude might be not right.
Yeah, potentially. Obviously, Gary's got an unbelievable CV and an unbelievable record between. He was involved with the Dubs. He was involved with Irish rugby as well. He was involved with Kieran Kingston the last time he was there as Cork manager as well. So it's not a massive departure or anything to get him back in. And I suppose a lot of it would be as well, what are the ramifications of that 16-point hammering in last year's All-Ireland final? Cork were tipping away nicely and they were sprouting up like mushrooms, like we always say, overnight. Then all of a sudden, it was bam, they're destroyed in an All-Ireland final. And from a coming team now, you wonder what are the mental kind of consequences of that defeat. So having someone like Gary with his expertise obviously will help there. Pat McCarthy's in as coach. He's a former captain and a very, very well regarded manager and coach. I think Stephen Casey's in as S&C coach as well, so he's definitely shaking things up a bit, and probably not a bad thing, given that you know, they were beating the All-Ireland final so comprehensively last year. If you're coming back in and everything is the exact same, you're wondering maybe how is that going to how are things going to change? So Kieran Kingston, in fairness to him, has definitely shook things up. And it's going to be really interesting to see how they react next year. Really, really interesting. Because you probably say they got to the All-Ireland final without beating any of the real big hitters. They didn't beat a Tip, they didn't beat a Waterford, and they obviously didn't beat a Limerick. They were beaten by Limerick twice. So going to be interesting to see all the underage success, All-Ireland minors and under-20s. You know, can they bring that to senior level? And again,
What's your sense?
Yeah, what are the ramifications of that All-Ireland final? I think that All-Ireland final collapse, or whatever you call it, or you could point to Limerick's dominance as well, that will have effects.
You think?
I don't see them
scars
I don't see them being a player this year.
Right.
Probably maybe next year or the year after. I think it'll take a while. And as you say about the Dubs, if you're beaten by 16 points in the All-Ireland final, you think your setup and your team is really good going into it, and then you're asking questions like, okay, if we're beaten by 16 points by Limerick in this game and we're beaten 7 points in the Munster semi-final, like, surely we have to look at changing X, Y and Z. So there's probably going to be a few personnel changes as well there. And those young guys coming in, you just don't jump from under 20 to senior level. You just don't do it. It takes a couple of years at least. So I think probably by 2023-24 they'd be real contenders.
There's a possibility that being beaten by like 10 points or so by that Limerick team is actually not a bad result.
Yeah, well, if you look at Limerick or Waterford were beaten, I think 11 points the last 2 times they've played them, and they're one of the few teams that have really fronted it up to them.
Yeah.
So,
you know, but like you read, obviously there's the results driven, and like you have to, I suppose, you have to go back. It's like Kieran Kingston isn't going to go back and go, listen, sure, that was a great all year out and we were beaten by 10 points. I do get why you would have to go back and have a look at things, but like, I don't know. It doesn't sound like you're fully bought into the idea that this Limerick team might go on to dominate the game for the next little while, because you've said that Galway might put it up to them. You're making half a case for Cork now in a couple of years' time.
I'm probably playing devil's advocate, to be honest with you. I do think Limerick's age profile is absolutely tailor-made for being there for the next 3 to 4 years. I think they'll probably win maybe 2 of the next 3, whether that's 2 in a row, and to make it 4 in a row. I'm not so sure. They have a couple of injuries now. Peter Casey's out. He's hoping to be back for the latter stages of the Munster Championship. His place may have been taken by Barry Murphy, who's also out with a cruciate. So they haven't really had any of those really big injuries to derail them in recent years. So, you know, if something were to happen and there was a suspension to one of their other big players, and it's funny, if you look at, you know, they've all the style, and everybody talks about the likes of Keane Lynch and Aaron Gillan and these guys. If they were missing someone like a Will O'Donoghue, who's their enforcer at midfield, who does so much. I was listening to PM O'Sullivan was on with Ger there a few weeks ago. These are, to me, someone like him is nearly the most important player for Limerick, because he just enforces everything around that middle third where they lord games. So if they can keep everyone fit, they're going to be really, really hard beaten. But yeah, things are never go plain sailing.
They're a serious side, all right. A few comments into us here on YouTube. OTB, so this was somebody telling us that we shouldn't have been talking about the hurling first up, that we should have been talking about the Champions League. Fergus Keogh saying that OTB is an Irish show. Of course we should be talking about Club GAA. I don't think there are any Irish clubs in the Champions League. Naas, Blessington, Ballymore, Hollywood are 4 clubs in about 10 kilometre radius of each other, and all in senior and intermediate finals in Wicklow and Kildare this year, says Peter G. Question in there for Fiona. We'll come back to you and let you know why you want to get involved in that in just a moment. Can't wait, says Laurus. Can't wait for the championship next year. It's a championship without the Fitzy, who would always draw interest. Love the show, lads.
Yeah, well,
We'll miss him.
It is the first time in something like 35 years, I think, that he's not going to be involved either as a player or a manager. So
he'll have a nibble around somewhere, won't he? Like, he'll be involved somewhere.
Yeah, and listen, as we talked about with Naas, managers go and things happen at different stages in different counties. Who's to say he won't be waiting in the wings, or even he floated the idea of potentially being a coach as well somewhere. You just wouldn't know where he could come in.
And one other from Damien here says, I'm English and I love OTB. Don't know what they're talking about when it comes to GAA or hurling, but I still love it. And Patrick Hickey saying that Verney loves the traditional counties.
Patrick's from Clare, yeah, a big GA man. I'm technically not from a traditional county myself.
No.
In Offaly, we're well outside of the big 3. So I tried to go to bat for the other counties where possible. I didn't realise you were from Westmeath. We're kind of we're both much maligned back there in the Midlands.
Some of us have more to be maligned about than others, it turns out. But look, it's a cross we have to bear. Right, that's the GAA chat for the minute. So if it's Champions League or after, stay tuned. We've loads of that coming up. It's 8:05. You're watching OTB AM. I do want to remind you as well, by the way, that we have a great competition running this morning, and you have a chance to get involved. We will let you know about that we'll let you know about it right now, because we have a couple of pairs of tickets. Ireland against Japan this weekend. It's all with thanks to our friends over at Aldi. Aldi are official food partner of the IRFU. You can pick up the Irish Rugby Home Cookbook. It's in Ada Bernardo's, and it'll be available in Aldi today. To be in to win, send in your questions for Fiona Hayes, who's going to join us just before 9 this morning to talk about the game this weekend. The best 2 questions going to pick up a pair of tickets each for this Saturday's game, so get your questions in for that. And if you've missed any of those details, you can check us out on Twitter, the Off the Ball feed on Twitter, and we'll recap all of that. And you can get involved and potentially get your questions in and potentially win a couple of tickets for the game this weekend. Right, it is 8:05. Packed show still to come right here on OTB AM. We're going to hear from Fiona Hayes, but we're talking Liverpool with Gareth Roberts next.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
I think it's a very fickle world, professional sports.
Munster legends Alan Quillan and Niamh Briggs are joining forces to bring you all the latest analysis, news, interviews and so much more.
We want better performances, we want more attack.
People might think that my Munster hat is too Munster. Got to get into a position where we're rewarding form as opposed to credit in the bank.
The Red 78 with Alan Quillan and Niamh Briggs. Available every Wednesday. Don't miss a moment of action. Subscribe to the rugby channel on the OTB Sports app and turn on your notifications now.
Car insurance is boring, but you don't have to be. Get Set Go is the kind of car insurance you can sort in a few minutes online, then bounce on with your day. Are you ready for Quick Start Insurance? Get a quote now at getsetgo.ie. MCL Insurance Services Ireland Limited, trading as getsetgo.ie, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, proud supporters of Movember. Gentlemen, let's move.
All right, 6 minutes past 8. You're watching OTB AM on this Thursday morning. Myself and Michael Verney with you this morning all the way through until 10 o'clock. And we want to reflect on Liverpool's win over Atletico Madrid in the Champions League last night. And to do that, delighted to say, founder of the Anfield Wrap, Gareth Roberts. Good morning to you.
Good morning, you okay?
Flying it, thank you, and I'm sure you are this morning as well. I noted with interest Jurgen Klopp's comments before the game last night that he was expecting, without question, a game of intensity and a tough game. Didn't quite materialise that way.
No, it didn't turn out that way, but Liverpool made a fast start. We're in Atletico's faces from the get-go. That's been sort of a pattern in quite a few Liverpool games this season. I think there was a slight nervousness that Liverpool lately have not took advantage of early leads. We did that out there, of course. We saw what we saw against Brighton at the weekend, but this time it felt a little bit more comfortable. I thought Atletico shot themselves in the foot a little bit. We all know that they love the dark arts of the game, but the dark arts of the game come back to bite them on the bum this time. I thought the referee was obviously having none of it this time. I thought they were targeting Sadio Mane, and that was why you see Sadio eventually withdrawn at half time, which was a bit of a shame because I thought he looked on it and he looked sharp. But yeah, it was more comfortable, I think, than we all thought, but absolutely delighted with it, as you say. Liverpool have wrapped up qualification and won the group with 2 games to spare, and I think that's brilliant for Liverpool. It gives Jurgen Klopp an opportunity to rest some of the players, but it also gives Jurgen Klopp an opportunity to give some players some real big European experience. We've got Porto at home this month, and we've got Milan in December, and the likes of Tyler Morton, who's looked good and is highly rated, and we all want to see how he gets on in a first team game. Certainly in Europe, that would be brilliant for Tyler, brilliant for the club, and brilliant for fans, I think. So yeah, perfect night really for Liverpool.
How much of last night's result was tied up in some satisfaction with some comeuppance for the syndicate of shithouses, to borrow your own phrase?
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think there was that. I mean, look, ultimately, it was a group phase match, and you can play a big name in a group phase, but it's never for me going to feel the same as if it's a quarter final or it's a real big game. But there was an edge last night, and I think that edge was encouraged by the syndicate of shithouses that Atletico no doubt have, starting with the manager. I mean, he's doubled down on his handshake huff. He said that it's not for him, etc., etc. He obviously had Suarez in the ranks as well. And then, as I say, they seem to me to be targeting Sadio Mane early on. We've seen all the usual stuff of feigning injury, getting around the referees, just generally being a pain. And I think all that added an edge to it. You know, Liverpool had a safety blanket there last night. They didn't have to win because of their start to the group. They could have took it easy, but I felt that there was an edge. I felt that the team wanted to go out, get the job done. They didn't shy away from challenges themselves. It was good to have Fabinho back in the ranks for that type of moment. And yeah, I think they wanted to get it done, to beat this side. And there was a bit of beef between the sides, and I don't mind a bit of that.
Yeah. What was your, like, so Liverpool are 2-0 up, as they had been in the previous game, and there was 30 seconds there where it looked as if, oh my God, I can't believe this, Liverpool have coughed up a load of chances, and Suarez, of all people, has made it 2-1, and like, who knows where this game goes. And at that point, for that 30 seconds, I think a lot of people were looking at the game going, like, questioning Liverpool in a way that you don't when it's 2-0 and you think everything's comfortable and they're just cruising to the finish line. Is it wrong to think too deeply about that sort of stuff?
I think it's natural, isn't it? I think it's natural as a football fan to do that. I think it's natural for people in the media to do that as well, because the media are always looking for a line or a problem or an issue with a club. So, you know, there was that quick moment where you're like, oh, no, they're not going to do it again, are they? And there was quite an amusing moment at 2-0 as well, where the cop started to sing Jurgen Klopp's name, and he actually turned around and sort of, you know, remonstrated with the cop. He said about it before, about he thinks when he hears his name being sang, it's as though we're saying, you know, the match is done and the game is over. And I have to be honest with you, that's how we felt, though, in the ground last night. It did feel like it was done. It did feel like it was over. They were down to 10 men. But then, yeah, it would be him, wouldn't it? It would be Suarez. He hits the shot, it gets a deflection, it goes in. But even that was a wonderful moment that it gets ruled out. I mean, we have one chalked off ourselves for VAR. I wasn't too sure about that, even when I've seen it back. But yeah, I mean, you know, Suarez and Simeone were both pantomime villains on the night, and they both got to come up, and, you know, Suarez got booked, he had a goal disallowed, and then he's subbed off the pitch as well. So he's had a pretty miserable night there. And that, you know, you've got to be honest about these things. That adds to the enjoyment. Yeah,
the booing of Suarez, you were fully expecting it last night, and he had maybe gone on a bit of a sort of a charm offensive in advance to try and mitigate some of that. Is, like, obviously there's so much spoken, Gareth, about like what went on, particularly around the Evra time and like his behaviour after obviously he's left the club. Is there an element of the booing, and again, maybe I'm just overthinking this one, but is there an element of the booing that is Liverpool fans' opportunity for some catharsis almost post all that stuff that went on with Kenny Dalglish that time and with the team that time, that Carragher obviously is... I think live on Sky at one point or another apologised to Evra and the club. I think have made similar moves. Is there an element of it that's like, Jesus, that what we did there was wrong, and we're taking this out on this guy now?
Maybe there is, yeah. I mean, I certainly, from my point of view, think how the club reacted at the time was wrong. I said so at the time. Not everybody felt the same way. You know, as football fans, some football fans at least often do. They dig in, they trench in, and they back their own no matter what. And some people will forgive anything. If a footballer has ability, it seems. I mean, we've seen that over and over, not just at Liverpool, at clubs worldwide. I'm not a huge fan of it. I think that if you're a player at a football club, A, of course, you need to be good at football, but B, you need to respect the values of the club as well. And for me, Luis Suarez didn't do that when he was at Liverpool. There was obviously the Evra incident, but there was also the way he manoeuvred for a move. He tried to go to Arsenal. He essentially went on strike at one point. For me, as soon as it was possible for him to leave, he did leave. And he only won the League Cup when he was at Liverpool. And for me, we're watching a better player than him now in Mo Salah, someone who's won the league, won the European Cup, and from what we can see, is happy to stay around. Whereas, you know, Suarez was happy to wave his bye-bye. And look, people can say Liverpool were at a different junction, a different place at that time. I get that. But yeah, I mean, he was biting an opponent as well in a Liverpool shirt. So you're right as well to mention Kenny Dalglish. I mean, to me, Kenny Dalglish is an absolute legend, the Liverpool Football Club, unquestioned. And for me, he got thrown under the bus by Luis Suarez. You know, promised the manager at the time to go and shake a hand, doesn't shake the hand, and then, you know, Kenny's left to face the music. And for me, you know, that wasn't the right thing. I don't think it should have been Kenny facing the music. Kenny's a football manager and a football man. There should have been people higher up in the club, you know, showing some leadership that day, that time, but they didn't do. It was left to Kenny. But ultimately, it fell down to Suarez's behaviour. And then there's the way he's behaved when he was at Barcelona. We saw him going in on Andy Robertson and things like that. We saw him for me, celebrating. I don't mind a celebration against an old club. I'm not one of them who thinks you can walk away and pretend you haven't scored a goal. But he went really over the top, and it was a bit like, well, hang on. So he didn't respect Liverpool for me very much. So I don't know why he should demand respect the other way. And yet you're right. Look, I think a lot of people look back at that time and say, that was wrong. That it was wrong how a lot of us reacted. There's wrong how the club reacted. And hopefully, well, A, we never see anything like that again. And B, should we, God forbid, see something like that again, then we all react in the right way this time.
Yeah, we've Patrice Evra on the show tomorrow, actually, and I'm knee deep in his book, and you read his account of it, you think, God, is there any other way for this to be construed, and how was it not so obvious at that time? You've got the linguistic experts coming in and saying, it could be construed this way. I mean, on the football pitch, in the heat of battle, it couldn't be construed any other way, really, was the thing. Just one on the game last night then, on that, Gareth, was the booing then was like a deep-seated, like, I mean, hatred is a very strong word, but like a dislike of this guy from a good section of the support, because it can be, I think you mentioned earlier on, that sort of pantomime villain bit, but it's not that, is it?
I don't think it is. No, I think for a lot of us it is more. It's what I'm talking about. People are very passionate about the club. It's their life. I feel like I'm always saying that when I come on here. We live it. Football fans live their football clubs and they're proud of it. And, so much of their life is entwined in it. And so if someone shows disrespect to the badge, to the club, to the people, to the city, to the manager, to a legend like Kenny Dalglish, then they're not going to be liked. And look, it wasn't, everyone doesn't feel the same about this. Like, last night when I got in, I had people saying to me, well, have you seen this person's opinion? And have you seen what this person said? And there was a few people giving me a little bit of stick as well, saying, how can you clap someone like Lallana and not someone like Mo Suarez? And I'm like, Mo Suarez, Luis Suarez. And I'm like, well, because for me, it's back to what I said before about values. Adam Lallana respected the values. Adam Lallana did good work, but for the club, both as a footballer, but in terms of the culture, he embraced the city, he got involved with food banks, all of those things. Suarez did none of that and did the complete opposite. And I think there's a dislike and a disrespect for Suarez, but others will still say, I don't care. He's one of the best players I've ever seen in a red shirt, and will push all the other stuff away. Like I say, there's always football fans that will do that over anything. I always go back to Hicks and Gillette on this and say, when they were at our club and when they were doing what they were doing to our club, there were people who were happy to just say, I'm not bothered. We've got players on the pitch, we're winning games, we've got a manager. I had people saying to me, you need to get off the internet. And I was like, no, you need to understand what Hicks and Gillette are doing to our football club and get on the streets and start protesting about it, because we can make a difference. But people consume football in different ways, and people are different people and have different opinions. And I think there are some different opinions about Suarez, but I guess those boos were audible on TV. I was obviously in the middle of the cop, but certainly where I was stood, there was plenty of people booing him, and I was one of the number.
I'm not surprised to hear you say that from our conversation for the last five or 6 minutes. It's very hard to get a read on exactly where Liverpool are at the minute. You've obviously got the Brighton game from the other weekend. There's a bit of evidence. You have like some players coming back. Thiago comes onto the pitch last night, and then you've got the Curtis Jones update. Firmino sort of half limps off. Difficult to know. It's maybe easy to make a case for either scenario here, in that Liverpool, and they are of course genuine title contenders no matter what's happening on the injury front. But what's your sense of exactly at this moment, because it feels like a pivotal enough moment at the minute for Liverpool, what's your sense of exactly where it is they're at?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as you say, they are genuine title contenders. There's no two ways about that. I think if you look at all the facts and figures, the stats that underlie the stats and all that kind of stuff, Liverpool are absolutely brilliant going forward at the moment. With 25 games unbeaten as well, which has just matched the club record that was set in Bob Paisley's time. And I understand what you say. I get that, and it's the same in the Liverpool bubble that people are saying, I'm not sure, it's a shame that we've got injuries. Bobby's gone off last night. It's a shame about Keita because he was showing some promise there and then he's got injured again. There was the body language comment from Jurgen Klopp, which was a surprise to me. He doesn't normally go public on his grievances, but I thought he was sort of, was putting it on the toes, really, of Oxlade-Chamberlain and Curtis Jones there for me. I think that was who that was aimed at that night. I thought you got a response, by the way, from Oxlade-Chamberlain last night. And look, it was massive for me to see Fabinho back on the pitch last night. There's no one at the club that comes close to being able to do the job Fabinho can do in his position. So to have him there and to have him playing again, is the biggest thing for me in midfield. So if he's there, he's able to play against West Ham at the weekend. I think that's a big tick in the box to say we can go and beat a form team in the Premier League right now. People will continue to say that Liverpool should have invested one more in the last transfer window, and you can see the argument why. You've got the likes of Milner, who's cracking on now age-wise. You've got the likes of Keita, who since he's pulled on a red shirt, his injury record is horrendous, although it wasn't at his club before Liverpool, so there's no reason for Liverpool to think that was going to be the case. But, you know, it's a hindsight thing, isn't it? People will, because the other argument about that is, well, they'd already recruited to replace Ronaldo, if you want, by getting Thiago in, but then he's had a bad injury record since he joined Liverpool as well. So we could do with a little bit of fortune around the injuries, but there's not too much wrong, to be honest with you. I thought Brighton played well. It was a bit of a makeshift midfield in that game, and okay, we all walk away disappointed that we haven't won that one. But going forward, Liverpool are unstoppable right now, scoring 2-3 goals at least every single game right now. I think any defence in the world struggles against this attack right now. So that gives us a huge chance of winning every single game that we play. So I'm fully behind where Liverpool are. I just think that, you know, maybe we could do with a little bit more luck injury wise, but that. You're about to say it's easy when you see Thiago and Fabinho come on the pitch last night, and then we get the Bobby thing. So it feels a little bit, come on, give us a break, the injury gods. But we're doing all right. We're doing all right.
Yeah, and West Ham at the weekend feels like it'll be a really good test of where this Liverpool team
Absolutely.
are at.
Yeah, look, West Ham are doing brilliantly, aren't they? I think we're all sort of. They're one of those clubs where I think, you know, there's no real beef between Liverpool and West Ham, so you can sort of go and watch a West Ham match and not have any skin in the game. You can just watch it for what it is, and look, they're playing well. They're doing well in Europe. They've obviously got a European match to contend with tonight, and Liverpool have got a little bit, 24 hours more to rest, if you like. So maybe that's to our advantage. We've give David Moyes plenty of stick down the years as well because of who he's managed, and we've got the song about him being a football genius. But look, he might actually be one because it's incredible what he's done with West Ham. And I wondered last season whether it was down to it seemed quite toxic in their ground at times, and there was all these factions and all the rest of it. And then they had a period where they were playing well at home in front of no fans. And I thought, well, I wonder what it'll be like when they get fans back in. Well, the fans are back in and they're still playing well. So you've got to respect them. You've got to respect what they're doing. But the only thing I can sort of clutch at when I'm looking at what they've done so far this season, they've knocked both Manchester clubs out the cups, which is absolutely fine by me. But in terms of who they're playing in the league so far, they've not really played the big boys. They've got us at home. They've got Man City coming up as well, away. So they're two games, I think, where you see where they're really at. But yeah, it's a tough one on paper for Liverpool. I'll be delighted to go and get a result there if we can. And as I say, I'm confident of doing so. I think it'll be a good game, though. West Ham play good football, and we'll certainly test Liverpool on Sunday. I
do think, actually, reading Evra's book, that Moyes' reputation actually goes up a little bit, and that the players seem to really have. He did make a couple of mistakes when he came in, and I'm sure he'd accept all of that. But the players checking out, which is very clear from the Evra book, didn't help him. Can I ask you one thing just about the? There was a lot of chatter around the game last night, Gareth, before we wrap. Just. About the last time the two of them obviously met, and the 3,000 supporters that had come from Spain to come to the game, and the government report that was saying that they were linking directly 37 deaths in Liverpool to that. It's a phenomenal number, and it's a travesty in so many ways. Was there? I don't know. You were obviously at the ground. Is that part of the chat last night, or do people think about it? Do people, again, no more than the conversation we were having early on, are you just trying to square it off in a dark part of your brain and not overly consider it too much?
I think it was always going to come up, wasn't it? Because 19 months earlier, it was the same opposition, the same competition, a night game and all the rest of it. So it was always going to be in the back of your mind, and it was in the back of mine, I've got to be honest. I went to that game that night. I think back about it a lot, to be honest, because it felt weird on the night. It felt weird that that their fans were allowed to travel at that time as well, when Madrid was a hotspot for coronavirus. It did make you wonder, really. And I do what I do as a living, so I thought, well, because of that, because I've got a season ticket, I don't know, I just felt duty bound to go. But then once I was in there in that game, it felt increasingly wrong. And it's nothing to do with the football or the result or what happened that night. That almost seems inconsequential to me now. It's the way it felt. And, you saw Jurgen Klopp kicking off on people that night because they were trying to reach out and high-five him and stuff. He said himself that since it's the only time he's sort of not been thinking about football at a football match. And I know exactly what he means, because that's how it felt to me. There was almost like this guilt that started to grow around it, and certainly afterwards as well. And you were like, what were we doing there? But then I look back at it another way and think, well, I shouldn't feel like that, really, should I? Because there's the government, there's the public health officials, there's the local authority. All of those people are paid to listen to the experts and make decisions that protect the public. And for me, they got it wrong by allowing the likes of that match and Cheltenham to take place. And then we've seen the report that's come out since. It's linked those deaths, and it's incredibly sad. And look, I think about the families that undoubtedly make that link themselves. We've seen some of them in the media, people talking about they've lost a father who went to that game. He didn't really go anywhere else other than that game. So, therefore, you make the link and you say, well, it's likely that he picked it up there and it ended up costing him his life. So, yeah, incredibly sad. And I was actually advocating. I don't think anything happened around it. And I can understand both ways, but I was advocating pre-match in the build-up, saying, I wouldn't have minded seeing some kind of mark of respect around it, because for those families that I mentioned, because I don't care about the politics of it too much. What I do care about is there are definitely people out there who will have made that link, will have lost people. There's people in the Liverpool number, if you like, who went to that game 19 months ago and unfortunately couldn't go last night because they've lost their lives. And for me, that maybe should have been respected or marked in some way. That's what I would have liked to see. Other people disagreed.
Yeah, no, brilliant as always, Gareth. And
thank you, mate.
Didn't even get a chance to talk about the Manchester derby, which I know you were very keen to get into. What's your ideal outcome of that game, by the way?
Manchester United win, the no threat to Liverpool, and Manchester City are. It's as simple as that.
That's the ultimate. That's the most cutting thing you've said in the last 20 minutes or so. Good man. Enjoy the football over the weekend. Thanks a lot, Gareth Roberts.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Founder there of the Anfield Wrap, who has brilliantly covered, I think, all aspects on and off the pitch last night. It is 8:27. It's Thursday morning. You're watching OTB AM. It's myself and Michael Verney with you all the way until 10 this morning. Loads to come still on the show. We're going to be talking rugby with Fiona Hayes in a few minutes' time. We're going to be talking to Sean O'Hara as well, who is currently this month running 30 marathons in 30 days, all for Movember. So we're going to find out how the hell he's doing that and why he's doing it as well. Really interesting story. That'll be coming your way a little bit later in the show. Liverpool fans, by the way, I do want to remind you that you won't want to miss our very latest Cadbury FC Roadshow. We're going behind the scenes at Anfield with legendary striker Robbie Fowler. We're also going to be joined by the Liverpool captain and Ireland international Niamh Fahey, as well as the former Liverpool midfielder Richie Partridge, who was recently the club physio as well. It's all with thanks to Cadbury FC and their club partnerships, granting you behind the scenes access at the Premier League's biggest clubs, coming soon to OTB Sports social channels and on air as well. I think, if I'm not mistaken, in fact, you might be able to hear the very first of that show on Off the Ball tonight from 7 o'clock. So that is all to come in over the next little while. Let's tell you what's happening across the back pages this morning. We're going to kick off with OTBsports.com. This is Gordon Darcy and Keith Wood on with Joe yesterday when Jonathan Sexton went for Keith Gleeson. This was early indications that this lad might have something about him. That was from Wednesday Night Rugby last night. Stephen Kenny and his Ireland coaching staff are brilliant. John Egan, conversation with Joe again on the show last night. Story with Aaron Rodgers there. NFL Week 9 picks with Cian Fahey and plenty more as well besides up on OTBsports.com for you this morning. Let's let you know what's happening across the newspaper back pages now. Kick off with the Irish Independent here. Seems we better do that since we've Mick here beside us in studio. Murray set to make way for Gibson Park. This is the early team news that's come out from some of the papers this morning. Farrell to give Leinster number 9 the nod for Japan game, with Sexton poised to secure a 100th cap. So it looks as if there's going to be 12 players from Leinster in that Ireland starting 15 for the Japan game this weekend. Shefflin adds Joyce and Lally to Tribesman's backroom team. That's Frank Rowe trying there. We discussed that a little bit earlier on. And League of Ireland facilities horrific compared to GAA clubs, says Duff. We'll come back to that story in a couple of moments' time. The Irish Examiner for you: breaks my heart. Duff, I call them dinosaurs, but the GAA is wiping the floor with soccer. Damien Duff inside is unveiled as the new Shelbourne boss. Red Hot says the Irish Daily Star this morning. That's Liverpool's win over Atletico last night. Duff, the GAA, is wiping the floor with soccer. Murray's Lions Pride, that's his reflections on what was a pretty disappointing tour, actually, as it turned out really in the end for him, for the Lions, and how he's looking to pull all that back on track. And Varane out for the next few games for United, and going to miss this weekend. You think that's a significant blow for them. Jota sends Reds into the last 16. Duff scared but excited by his new challenge, writes Philip Quinn. And Sexton to lead strong Ireland side against Japan, writes James Murray inside. And loads of stories about that rugby game this weekend. Duff, the GAA wiped the floor. That's the Herald for you. The Mirror. There's loads of great Damien Duff stuff is the short story there. We need to be like the GAA if we want to thrive, writes Paul O'Hare. COP26. COP26, see what they've done there, Mick? You following global events?
It's very good, actually. You had to say it twice for me to to be fair.
Jada and Mane put the Reds into the last 16 as Simeone's hotheads lose their cool. Mahrez is Pep's lucky number as City beat Bruges there. The Irish Sun, some like it, Jot. I mean, it's another good contender for Tab of the Morning
That's
there.
very good. One of my favourite films, I have to say. Brilliant film, yeah. Some like a hot classic film,
it's
yeah.
Like 60s,
yeah. It's usually on at Christmas every year, yeah.
It's like a musical, basically, is it? Is that
kind of? Yeah, it's one of Marilyn Monroe's films. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Who's the male lead in that?
Jack Lemmon, I think, is one of them. Anyway, it's very, very good. Yeah, they basically they've seen a killing and they have to dress up as women to get away, and they end up joining this kind of travelling kind of band or whatever.
And there's two male leads and Marilyn Monroe. Did you say, is that the?
Yeah, I think she's in as well. Yeah. It's I'd encourage anybody to watch it. It's very good.
I wouldn't have put you down for something like it hot, I have to say. That is
full of surprises.
What else have we got? Duff, love is served, and away the lads. Toon turned to Eddie after Emery snub. So this is the news that Eddie Howe looks like he's going to get the Newcastle job. Tony Curtis points out Joseph, I think, here as producing the show this morning.
Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon, yeah.
The leads on that one. Balance admits racial slur. This is a story in English cricket. The England batsman regrets calling Rafiq an offensive name and insists that the pair were best friends at Yorkshire. That's a story that's worth reading up on and is going to run, no question about it. Newcastle stunned by Emery snub is the other story there. More on that cricket story, the racial slur on the Telegraph, and also reflections on Liverpool's game last night. What else have we got? The Irish Times is the last one we'll let you know about here. Little resistance as Liverpool ease past 10-man Atletico, and Mary Hannigan, always worth a view. Read, Duffer gets a big welcome home, but it's Simeone who is left to see red. And one of the questions obviously that came from that Duff press conference yesterday was the Owen had mentioned to him that, you know, you're sort of locking yourself into events at home here now. Would you not be sort of half tempted by, because obviously he's got a decent CV, he's got an incredible playing CV behind him that would open loads of doors. Would you not be sort of half tempted by a move elsewhere? And he's like, no, family settled, kids going to school, they're enjoying their GAA, which is how that all came up, and he seems like he's just locked in, and like, I mean, it is unbelievable for the League of Ireland and unbelievable for Shelbourne.
It's savage, yeah. It's some PR for the League of Ireland. I think Brian Kerr said last night that it's the biggest return of a former Irish international since Johnny Giles basically got back involved in Irish football, and it is, and like, I would take a cursory glance at League of Ireland if I'm honest. I'm not the biggest soccer fan in the world, but I'd be definitely going to keep a close eye on how he's getting on. And just from a journalist point of view, mixing soccer and GAA, he's grabbed the headlines straight away there. And I think he was saying about his own young fellas are involved in GAA now, and I think he says he passes by Ballyboden's grounds and he just kind of says wow the whole time. And then the comparison between that and what he views as very, very substandard soccer facilities, it's definitely very, very thought provoking. And I think our Shelbourne, is there controversy over Talca Park at the moment?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of chat that they're going to move into Dalymount Park, and Brian Kerr was also of the view last night that would not be a good move for them. And like, Talca Park is such a ground with such great history, but like a club with ambitions kind of needs to have their own club, don't they? Like,
pretty much.
Shared ground doesn't, like, it's only ever going to be a stopgap. And like, look, it might make absolute financial sense at this exact moment in time, but like, you just think in terms of future ambitions. And he spoke glowingly, to be fair, about the owners and about the board, Damien Duff, yesterday, as to where all that's going. And it's funny, the conversation about GAA facilities and GAA training versus soccer facilities and soccer training in my house right now is full on all the time, because we're just started in, the young fella is 5 and he started into all that sort of training this year, and the GAA is really well structured. The way they harness and the way they lean on the volunteers is incredible. The movement of people that they have to buy into what they're doing, the methods by which they're doing it, like there's a lot of science that goes into it. It's really incredible. And the soccer doesn't really, in my experience, and this I'm sure differs all around the country, but in my experience, the soccer is way more unstructured, and there's a lot of stuff left to chance and left to, like parents promoting my little Johnny is better than these kids over here, and so we'll create this little group over here that are better than these guys over here. Even at that age, is like it's a concern. Whereas with the GAA, there's equity across the board and everybody's getting a fair shake, and like there's not a huge emphasis on actually playing either football or hurling at that age. You are starting to introduce into bits and pieces of skills, but it's much more about setting up little games and fun and the social interaction.
Yeah, I think the GAA have really gotten their house in order in the last 10 or 15 years. You go to the vast majority of club grounds, even tiny villages that only cater for a couple of hundred people, and you're looking at a GAA pitch, you're looking at potentially a walking track for the community, you're looking at maybe an all-weather pitch where they can train in the winter. They've really bucked up the standard of facilities in the last 10 or 15 years. I remember chatting to Peter Dooley, he's from Bury, he's the Leinster rugby player, and I asked him years ago, like, what was one of the defining reasons why you chose rugby over hurling, and I remember he saying that he landed to what was an under-16 academy in inverted commas at the time in Offaly, and it was starting at 10 o'clock and like the gates weren't open at 5 to 10, and then he was saying about going to rugby when he went to Leinster trials, and you're there an hour and a half beforehand, and the physios and whatever that they have to cater for you. And in fairness, the GAA have really bucked up clubs in particular, and counties are sending GDAs around to various clubs, and there's way more hours be given to the GAA. I think the Go Games initiative is brilliant because it encourages numbers and participation rather than competition. The emphasis is more on enjoying yourself and maintaining numbers. And like it used to be a classic case in the GAA where there was an under 12 competition and we had to win this county title, and if there was 25 in the panel, and the 16 player wasn't that good, the 16 player wasn't going to play, and you're just going to play your 15. Whereas now it's more about making sure that those 25 players get equal time and equal participation, and that when that team gets to minor, that you maybe have 23 or 24 of them, and that you're not losing players. And I think the GAA has gotten really good at maintaining their numbers and putting structures in place to make sure that numbers are everything. And I think I don't have an intimate knowledge of soccer. I played soccer when I was younger myself and I enjoyed it quite a lot, but I do see the focus in the communities is first and foremost towards the GAA, and they're harnessing that, which is good.
Well, the thing is, Mick, you're getting the parents like the likes of myself, you're getting them involved in that volunteer bit, and so I'm excited and I'm getting involved. And I'm down on a Tuesday night now at the minute, and they're taking there's the guts of 80 or 90 adults down there on a Tuesday night who have been taught how to coach the kids and stuff. So, but I'm buying into it. I'm then chatting to my kid about it, getting him excited about it. And so, like,
just on that, coaching the adults as well. Like you will enjoy it more if you know what you're doing, and then as a result of that, the kids will enjoy it more because you know what you're doing, and you're not. You're encouraging them the whole time. You're saying what you should be saying. You're doing what you should be doing. So I think they're definitely doing a lot to leave the GAA in a better place in the future, and that has to be admired. In fairness, I said I don't have an intimate knowledge of what they're doing with soccer, but I know that the GAA have definitely booked up. Like the facilities. Like if you look, there's all. And Damien Duff talks about the Centre of Excellence in Balnakill and Wicklow, which he lives close to, and he talks about Ballyboden's facilities, and that's just a snapshot. Like, you drive anywhere. I love just driving to random places, or if you're going somewhere and stopping at the GAA pitch and just seeing, geez, this is a GAA pitch in the middle of nowhere and they have X, Y and Z, and look how well how well catered for everybody is within that community. And in fairness, they deserve a lot of credit for that. And Damien actually says about calling them dinosaurs a couple of years ago with regards to the Liam Miller game and trying to get it moved to Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and kind of basically takes it back and said he knew what he was doing and he knew that he might have a bit of power in getting that fixture changed, which he probably did play a big part in that. But I think there's an admiration for what the GAA have done from him, definitely, and he'd love to see soccer's, the standard of facilities been upped everywhere by all accounts.
Well, and Dennis Ryan says here on YouTube, he says, lads, community, parents involved in all sports, some amazing soccer clubs doing all the right things, and that's not the point that we're making at all, Dennis, and do appreciate the comment coming in. Damien Duff has brought up a really interesting thing, that if I'm Jonathan Hill this morning and I'm reading that, I'm sitting up and paying attention, and I'm going to start looking into it, and I'm just giving my own experience of it. And as I said, I'm sure that differs all around the country as well.
But Adrian, it takes people with that clout to say those things for any change
to sit
be
up and notice.
effective.
We're talking about it. They'll be talking about it across the country this morning. It'll be water cooler conversation, like the people that have the sort of experience that I'm talking about there. Brian O'Brien says soccer will never come close to the importance and special bond that the GAA has with local communities. And I think if you're a soccer head, you'll disagree with that, and you're into your GAA, you'll be like, yes, absolutely. Ulton Gebfoyle, meanwhile, to leave it here, says fantastic player for Ireland, on Damien Duff here for Ireland. But will Duff stick it out with Chels? He's developed a track record for walking away. He says himself, he addresses that head on at the press conference yesterday and says that just ain't true, Ulton. So have a gander at that. Before we wrap up on the papers, I know you wanted to give a mention to the Breeders' Cup, Mick. What's a lot of Irish interest?
Yeah, loads of Irish interest this weekend. It's obviously starting tomorrow. It's in Del Mar in California. It's tomorrow and Saturday. So you'd always associate Aidan O'Brien or maybe Dermot Weld with having runners, and Aidan has plenty of runners, the likes of Mother Earth, Love and others, and Dermot has Tarnawa going for back-to-back wins, but Gerlines also has a runner. Michael O'Callaghan has a runner. Paddy Toomey has a runner. There's lots of other Irish faces kind of trying to make their name on the international stage, and Michael O'Callaghan's a really interesting one in particular. He's got Twilight Jet running tomorrow night in I think it's the juvenile turf sprint. His business operation, or his business,
I know a lot of managers, when they do found their first gig,
sell, buy, get some form into
another manager's role again. But that's stuff.
He's been able to keep a hold of Twilight Jet, which is quite unusual. He sold a 50% stake, but he's maintaining training duties, and this would be the biggest win of his career. He's only a 33-year-old, started out training when he was 24.
Wow.
Just seems to have been a prodigious at everything he did. I think his family have an equine business, and I think Michael was doing tours when he was 15. He's just accelerated everything he's done. Now he's 33. He's 9 years in the game, and he's bought and sold and trained some of the best horses in Ireland. So I'll follow that story in particular.
Where can you watch it, or what's the?
It's on Sky, and at the races, So in fairness, I obviously cover racing, so I would have a lot of big interest in it. But the Americans, in fairness, to do it so right. You go anywhere on Twitter now, it's just there, it's right in front of you. And their access, they have all the horses galloping in the morning, talking to the trainers, they're showing the horses doing their stalls work. They're just all this, any way of promoting it where possible. And fairness to Matt Chapman, who will be a fairly larger than life character, he's covering it for At the Races, and it's just the access he has is phenomenal.
Yeah, well, that helps get buy-in and stuff as well. Right, we'll keep an eye on that over the weekend. Righto, John Duggan standing by. We're going to let you know what's happening in the world of live sport this morning in just a couple of moments. But before that, our latest chat with Brian O'Driscoll is live now, exclusively only on the OTB Sports app. It lives up there every week for 24 hours before you can get it on general release. And here is the great man on Gavin Coombs ahead of Ireland's internationals.
We never seem to have a shortage of back rowers, and it's always someone that's very unfortunate to miss out. But there's something about Coombs that I just think his ball handling ability, his way to read play and timing of the pass is Dennis Leamy-esque, who was one of the best ball handling back rowers that I'd played with, and just understanding, when's too long to hold on to the pass. He'd a couple of moments against USA again, just sucking in the defender, popping one out to James Ryan out the back door. Another one to Conway, where he managed to hold, stick the defender and put Conway down the wing. Those are small little things. They might seem insignificant, but with footballers or with back rowers with less football, they throw the pass a half second early, and that line break doesn't happen. There's a scrag tackle and there's a breakdown 3 yards away versus 20 yards away. And the difference between that 3 yard breakdown and 20 yard breakdown, teams are scrambling 20 yards away. They're in disarray. That's your opportunity. Whereas what you have to do to generate another score, try scoring opportunity from 3 yards away, where you have to backpedal a couple of yards, you set early, is enormous. So those are small little moments that I have been able to see with Munster and with Ireland in his couple of games that would get you very, very excited about his long-term prospects internationally too.
Yeah, Gavin Coombs, I think a lot of people are excited about, including Brian O'Driscoll there. If you want to hear that full piece, it's available now only on the OTB Sports app. It's the only place to get it, and then it'll be available on general release after that. But head along, download the OTB Sports app, turn on push notifications, and we'll hit you up with all the best stuff. JD, good morning to you.
Adrian and Michael, how are we doing?
Lots of reaction on the app this morning to Liverpool last night, flying along.
Yeah, 2-0 win over Atletico Madrid in the Champions League group stage at Anfield. So Liverpool are through now to the last 16 with 2 games to spare. The first time that's happened. They have not lost since April. They're unbeaten now in 16 games. Fabinho's return obviously crucial, but Jordan Henderson played well. And as Liverpool do, they attack from the start with Diogo Jota and Sadio Mane scoring. Atletico, the player sent off, and really after that it was always going to be only one result. So Liverpool through, they go to West Ham on Sunday. Manchester City only 1 point now away from a place in the last 16 as well. Club Brugge, they beat by 4-1 last night. Phil Foden, Riyad Mahrez, Raheem Sterling with his first goal since August, and Gabriel Jesus on the mark. So that blip against Crystal Palace overcome. We'll see what happens on Saturday in the Manchester derby against United at Old Trafford. PSG held to a 2-2 draw by RB Leipzig. So the Harlem Globetrotters thing, would you be convinced completely? Not so sure that PSG will be European champions next May or June, but we'll see what happens. In the Europa League this evening, West Ham take on Genk, Leicester facing Spartak Moscow, Celtic away to Ferencváros, and Rangers going to Brøndby. And Antonio Conte is in charge for Tottenham's Europa Conference League game against Vitesse Arnhem tonight, so we'll see if the revolution begins this evening. I'll say it'll be just a watching brief for him. Damien Duff, you've spoken at length about there in the last few minutes. 2-year deal at Shelbourne. He was coaching the under-17s, gave that very open press conference. Now the senior manager for the Premier Division side for next season. And he's spoken about his fears as he takes his first big role in management.
I know a lot of managers, when they do fail in their first gig, they probably never get another manager's role again. But, that's stuff that I'm fine with now. I'd happily be a barista. I'm halfway through my course. So if this doesn't work out, you might see me in a coffee shop. So absolutely fearful. And that's where I'm at my best. I didn't want to go to Celtic. I didn't want to go. But Stephen Bradley, Glenn Crone and Stephen McPhail, who I have the utmost respect for, made me go. My wife made me go, and she came with the kids and moved them up. But I didn't, because I was scared. I didn't back myself. I didn't think I was a good manager, a good coach. But they made me go, and it was the most amazing time in my life. So the most amazing times, whether it be player as a coach, is when I'm uncomfortable, fearful, and out of my comfort zone. So it's very, very simple.
I wish everybody in sport would speak like that.
Is Damien Duff the best communicator in Irish sport? That clip there is incredible.
Well, it was about 5 or 6 of those. There are many great communicators, but a lot of people choose not to communicate. And maybe they're wary of being on the back pages of tabloids or whatever. But
I'd have a flat white in Duff Beans and Co.
I don't even drink coffee, and I'd have a coffee, but served by Damien.
You'd go in just for the banter, wouldn't you?
Yeah, we've enough GA players selling coffee now and opening up coffee shops. Maybe Duff will, he might.
I wonder what sort of a barista he'd make, though. I mean, in terms of the chat, like, you do like a bit of chat when you're going in for your coffee. I can't.
Well, lads,
I can imagine he's a bit like, anybody familiar with Seinfeld, the soup Nazi? I'd imagine it's a bit like, come in, get your coffee, and get the hell out of here.
Well, lads, I don't know if there's any trademarks, but if you did go into the brewing business, it'd be called Duff Beer.
Duff Beer, yeah. Duff Beer for me, Duff Beer for you. I'll have a Duff, you'll have one too.
Yeah, so...
fair play to him and best of luck. I wanted to ask you about Tottenham, John. Could be just... I do get, and a lot of people are saying they're not convinced by maybe the type of football that he might bring, but maybe it's what Tottenham need is a bit of that sort of headmaster.
Well, Inter Milan, the stats were that in the first season with Inter Milan there were 18 different scorers, and in the second season there were 17 different scorers from an Antonio Conte team. So this notion that he's just another Mourinho, I don't know if that's completely accurate. I think he's very adaptable to what is in front of him, but I do think he's got a defence to sort out at Tottenham, absolutely. I do think Romero is a good signing. Look, he's a winner, and you can't say that Antonio Conte's best days are behind him, because he only won the league title a few months ago with Inter Milan in Italy. He's won 3 leagues with Juventus. He's won a league with Chelsea with 93 points. He won an FA Cup in his second season, even if it did go somewhat sour at Chelsea, as it always seems to for managers. Right. It's very, very exciting, Adrian and Michael. I'm just absolutely buzzed about it. I think it's a real coup for the club, but it's also necessary, because the club's hierarchy are now being put under pressure by the supporters. Because the supporters know, as well as Pochettino did not get the backing of the club. He brought Spurs to a place they hadn't been since the 60s, second in the league and a Champions League final. And with one trophy, a League Cup, which actually he was appointed 5,000 days to the League Cup win in 2008, it's damning evidence of the club that have built a brilliant business. But the time for lovely training grounds and lovely stadiums is over. Spurs need to be competing and winning things. Otherwise, you know, they're an inflated part of any conversation. Yeah.
What else you got for us?
Just a bit of news about the domestic league. UCD on track for that First Division playoff final. They beat Treaty United 3-0 last night. Bray Wanderers in Galway drew 0-0. Johnny Sexton, 100 caps against Japan on Saturday, is due, because he's going to be named, would expect, in that team by Andy Farrell at lunchtime today. Jameson Gibson Park also set to be named. The RFU confirming a number of tickets still available for the game against Japan and are on general sale. It'll be a Leinster-heavy team. Shane Lowry back in action in Mexico on the PGA Tour and the Worldwide Technology Championship alongside Seamus Power and Graham McDowell. They all tee off about 1 o'clock Irish time today for the PGA Tour event. The European Tour event is in Portugal. Cormac Sharvin, Jonathan Caldwell and Padraig Harrington involved in the Portugal Masters in Villamora. Thurles hosts 7 races from 12:10. And breaking news on the 42 this morning, developing story, we'll see how it develops. Oisin Mullen, the Mayo senior footballer, could be in line for a move to Geelong in the AFL.
Right. Wow, well, that would be an incredible move for him, an incredible blow for Mayo, it has to be said, because he was a player that has lit up the championship over the last couple of years, and they could desperately do with hanging on to players like that. But interesting stuff. Thanks, Jetty.
All right, lads. Take care.
For the minute, it's 10 to 9. We're going to turn our attention to rugby in just a moment, because Fiona Hayes is going to join us on the line to look ahead to the weekend's games, and plenty more as well besides. But I do want to remind you that if you're a Munster fan and you're looking for something to keep you going while you count down to your next trip to Thomond Park, there's a brand new Munster Rugby podcast over on the Rugby channel. The podcast is called The Red 78. It's hosted by Alan Quinlan and Niamh Briggs. Every Wednesday, they're going to bring you in-depth analysis of each weekend's games, interviews with some of the biggest players, and all the action as well from other teams around the province. The latest episode is live now, and here's a taste of it.
People often say the club game, and I believe it's the foundation of the game in Ireland. What's your opinion on that? Because some people are resentful a little bit who were really passionate about their club. They're a little bit resentful of the professional game because they've stolen our players and they're getting well paid and everyone forgets us. What's your opinion on that? Is it a really important part of our development as a rugby nation that you're a small cog in the team that'll run out against the All Blacks next week?
Yeah, look, this goes back for me for years, so I feel particularly passionate about it, and probably stemmed from someone like my dad, who was quite influential because he was a big club man as well. I think it's a core fabric of it, Quinny, and to be honest, I would say it's a little bit bigger than a small cog, because I've been lucky enough to work with some of these guys that have come through the system over the last 3 years. If you look at most recently, the likes of, say, Gavin Coombs playing for Ireland, and down through the years I've been very lucky, whether I've been an assistant coach and the likes of Bowes with the likes of Cully Tucker, and when he was head coach there, he was a brilliant coach, and with, you know, Jack O'Donoghue, Kevin O'Byrne, all these guys. And so down through the years, as I said, I've been lucky to see these guys develop, but I've seen the part the AIL is playing for a lot of these guys, you know. I remember reading an article from Peter Manny a couple of years ago, and he spoke at length about the influence and the importance of AIL had in his career path. Gavin only said the same very recently. You jump forward to Keenan's reaction to the game on Saturday. I mean, he was blown away by the standard. He was blown away by how challenged he was himself. And so, I like, you know, if you look at what I suppose was proposed by the RFU there a couple of years ago, was to you know, maybe lessen the gap between the pro game and the club game, and it was kind of seen as that third tier. And I know there was a proposal made to maybe look at top 2 divisions in the club game. I know for some that might be quite controversial, but it probably would have provided an opportunity or a pathway both for players and for coaches to get into the pro game. But Whether that's still in the cards or not, I don't know. But to go back to your original question, the club game is the core fabric of Irish rugby.
That is Gareth Prendergast in conversation with Quinny and Niamh on this week's episode of The Red 78, available now on the Rugby channel. We're going to keep it rugby. It's almost 5 to 9 on this Friday morning, and there's plenty of questions come in for our guests this morning to look ahead to the weekend's rugby. Fiona Hayes, good morning to you.
Good morning, how are you getting on?
Flying, and thanks. Loads of questions to come to. We'll get to those in a few minutes' time. But did want to talk about Japan, New Zealand, Argentina, and a lot of the conversation that lead into it, Fiona, has been about whether Andy Farrell should experiment, should he look to try and build out a squad, look at new options, change a philosophy. But really, when you think about it, does it not sort of come back to he's got the All Blacks in a week's time and he's got a job to keep, and it ain't no time for experimenting?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I think we'll see a team that we're used to seeing in those high level games. He obviously, there's a few people in and out. I'm not sure of the changes he'll make. I think a lot of the talk has been around a couple of starting spots, maybe hooker is a big one there at the minute. But I think he'll stick with the tried and tested. Maybe Murray hasn't had a lot of game time with Munster, so we might see Jameson Gibson Park in there, but maybe Murray on the bench. I would definitely think he's going to stick with the tried and tested for this game as a lead into that big game next week.
Yeah, there is some team news leaking through to us. We'll come to that in a moment. Gordon Darcy was on yesterday on Wednesday Night Rugby, and he's been writing in the Irish Times as well during the week about the squad selections not indicating a specific change in philosophy, if you want to use that loftier word. That idea of looking at new players, new ways of playing, and he was saying that it already felt like a missed opportunity. Like that value of... It's really difficult to get right, Fiona, isn't it? At that level of the game, the value of experimenting with what you're about versus, like, even if you were saying to Andy Farrell, listen, it's okay if we get 1 out of 3 and it's the All Blacks, this time around. Even if that's in your ear, if you're Andy Farrell, like, there's a bit of pressure on. There's not a huge amount of rope to be cut when you're trying to get results at that level, and not a huge amount of room for experimentation, really.
No, definitely not at that level. I mean, like, people have been talking, we've been watching closely Andy Farrell since he's come in, his style. I think a lot of people have been chatting about Mike Cadd and maybe not seeing a lot attacking wise. So there's pressure on these guys constantly. So although we have young guys performing in the local leagues, with Munster, Leinster, Connacht, I think when it comes to the crunch as a coach at that level, even though these are, tests, not necessarily, we're 2 years out for a World Cup. He's thinking like that. He's not going to be changing his philosophy, not going to be changing his style. He's just going to be trying to get these lads more game time.
Difficult to know what to expect almost this weekend, isn't it? Like, Ireland haven't played since July. Japan haven't had a huge amount of games, although one recently where they did fairly well against the Wallabies. But like, in that context, it's a hard game to preview because we really don't know what the hell to expect.
Yeah, and that's it. And I suppose the thing about Japan is, like, they're such an exciting side. I mean, I watched that game, the 23-32 game with Australia, and it was very, very tight until like the last couple of minutes. They played some really, really expansive rugby. I suppose when we look at Japan, we know what Tony Brown and Jamie Joseph can give for us. They're probably two of the best, most exciting coaches around, and especially Tony Brown. I was reading an article recently with some of the Japanese guys, and he's told them play with their own style. They practice with, they might be passing, then he might turn around and say pass behind the back. So these guys aren't afraid to try things, and I think we see that when they're playing that rugby. It's really, really exciting to watch, and I saw that in the Australian game. Yeah,
he turned down Brown, didn't he? Turned down the All Blacks. It's a pretty, that's a big deal in the career of a Kiwi. But maybe he turns up there at some point down the track as well. Some of the team news coming through, and you've hinted at some of it there already. But some of the team news coming through this morning, it seems like there's been a fair bit of leaking going on here about what this team looks like. And you mentioned the front row, so let's maybe jump in your area of expertise, Fiona. What's the expectation? The one thing actually seems loose enough at the minute as to whether it's going to be Porter or Healy at Loosehead.
Yeah, that's the thing. I suppose you have the thing there with Leinster is that they've all, you're probably looking at a Leinster front row, but it could go either way, and it's still fully Leinster front row. I think they probably will go with Healy for this game, tried and tested, getting Porter on from the bench. Obviously, Tyke Furlong definite in there, and I think if you're looking for something more exciting, lines of rugby, stuff like that, I think Kelleher is the man to bring in there. I mean, we know Hurling, what he can do at set piece time. He's probably the best in Ireland at the minute, hooker wise set piece. But just playing off that cuff, lines are running. Everything about Keller is exciting at the minute, and watching him with Leinster as well, there's just a bit more excitement about him, and I think this team needs that.
Yeah. So does that mean that it's a horses for courses almost, that it might be Herring, it might be Keller this weekend and it could be Herring the following weekend?
Yeah, exactly that. That's what I was thinking. He'll get his run out this weekend, and I suppose when you're playing that, even though the Japanese set piece is absolutely brilliant at the minute as well, I watched them. They've really tightened that up, and they're really strong scrum. But I think when it comes to that All Blacks game, you'd probably be a slightly bit more reserved when it comes to that set piece, and you want guaranteed ball, line out, scrum, and I think Herring offers that kind of strength in those areas.
Yeah, like that. It almost doesn't matter how well Keller plays this weekend, that he's nearly already picked his team for the following weekend.
Yeah, I'd imagine he'd have a fair idea of the 3 games, kind of what direction he's going. Obviously, injuries will come into play, if people are starting and so on and so on. But I would imagine by now he's a fairly good idea of who's starting where, what minutes people need. I mean, we've seen, I spoke about Murray, like you've looked at Henderson. Henderson hasn't played much rugby for Ulster as well. So are you trying to get him minutes in that Japanese game to lead up to the All Blacks? I suppose he's got all those decisions to make, but I would sure the lads have it done and dusted by now.
Fiona, what are realistic aspirations over this autumn series?
Yeah, I suppose for me, as you spoke already about 1 and 3, me personally, I think you'd want to be winning in the lead up to World Cup. That's all the talk at the minute. We're in a World Cup in 2 years. We want to be competing at high level. We're looking at the All Blacks. They're going out, they're blitzing teams at the minute in all competitions. They're playing exciting rugby at the same time. So I would think we'd want to be nailing 2 of those 3 games at least.
Yeah. And even at that, if it's the All Blacks game we lose, and depending on the nature of it, I don't think that there's no conversation here about, unless it's a total whitewash in terms of Andy Farrell's future, is there?
No, unless there's a complete whitewash. As I said, I don't think that. I know they've been maybe 9-10 days together in camp, and we look at maybe Japan, they've had 2 months together. That's the way they work. They go in and they settle in for a long time together. But these guys have been playing, we're watching Leinster, Munster a week in, Connacht as well. There's been exciting rugby being played at the weekend. Now it's just getting them in together and getting them gelling together. And I don't think that will be a problem with the squad he has. A lot of them are used to playing with one another.
Talk to us a bit about Sexton. Obviously it's his 100th cap, so let's focus on that for the minute. The fact that he didn't really properly come into things until he's about 24 makes it all the more outstanding, doesn't it? But like an achievement at that level of sport that not many get to.
No, and that's it. And I mean, he's spoken all week about how, he took that first cap. He didn't think he'd get up. He was looking at maybe 13, 14, 15, maybe at that age of 24. But I mean, he hasn't realised how much we've relied on him, and he knows that now. But he's just been such a professional. There's no one taking the jersey off his back because his standards have been so high. Obviously, at times he's had injuries, but the conversations are going on week in, week out. How come someone hasn't come in? How come someone hasn't nailed that certain jersey because Sexton is getting older? But he's just playing. When we watch him with Leinster, he's playing at that high tempo, that high level, and when he's fit, he's really, really pushing that team, pushing Ireland, pushing Leinster forward.
Yeah, and that is definitely part of the argument, that it's easy for a head coach when you get to that stage where, even if Sexton is trucking along fairly well, that there's another out half at one of the other provinces who you just can't resist, but you got to put them in the team, and that's not really happening at the minute.
No, it's not. And, there was a lot of talk about Jack Carty during the week, and people saying, he's in form. And Andy Farrell, came out and said, look, sometimes it's not always about form. And I think with that out half position, he's really kind of looking to the future with the 2 guys he's brought in there. So you have Joey, you have Harry. I don't know what way he's going to go, if all 3 will get game time. I imagine he would. But now's their chance to really kind of put their hand up and say, look, I'm coming in behind you, because we definitely haven't seen that. And I suppose Johnny is he's at his 100 cap. He's ready to, I'm sure he's not ready to wind down himself, but we definitely need to be seeing something as signs coming in the background, something a bit more consistent anyway.
Just to come back to the front row conversation for a second, forgetting about horses for courses then, what's your first pick front row?
Yeah, I think at the minute in watching the form, I would be, if you're looking at like the biggest game, I'd be looking at maybe they seem to be gelling really well. I'll be looking at Porter. I would say Hurling, and I would have obviously Tyke Furlong in there as well, just for consistency in set piece. I mean, I spoke about Keller and what he offers around the park. He's really, really dynamic. But there has been questions about his line-out throwing at times. And when you're in that pressure cooker of a big game against the All Blacks, you know, it's consistency that we need, and it's those players live off that, because that's the way Irish rugby goes. When we get the set piece right, I think a lot of the time everything else flows around it.
Okay. We had a few questions in. We'd thrown it out earlier on, Fiona, that you were coming on, and
I hope they've probed now. They're really probing questions.
There's a couple of good ones. There's one very left field one that we'll come to in a second. But the first one, good question that's come in from Izzol. Two questions that we have here, by the way, both, but thanks to our friends at Aldi, are off to the Ireland-Japan game this weekend. So congratulations and well done to both of you. First, Izzol Cody, good morning to you and well done. Question for Fiona, she asks here. She says, not on the weekend's game, but with the news that the women's rugby from our neighbours, the Welsh obviously, and the last few months of embarrassing scenes like Donnybrook, how far away are our women from this sort of commitment from the IRFU, which is obviously reacting to the news during the week that the Welsh Union have offered 10 full-time contracts, and I think it's 15 sort of associate contracts for some version of professionalism, and Izzol's Cody is, how far away are we from that?
Yeah, I think we're not too far away. The thing with the Welsh Union, I suppose, when we look at it, is Ireland actually do offer the women contracts, but they're in the sevens area. So with Wales, they don't particularly offer contracts in that, because the girls, there's maybe 2 or 3 that are involved, and they're contracted to Great Britain, because when they go to the Olympics and stuff like that, that's who they'll be playing with. So I would imagine that they're going to start looking at that 7s and 15s game. Contracts will come into play, and I would imagine in the next couple of years we'll see that start slowly coming into place in the 15s game. If we need to move on and push on as a nation, that needs to happen, and I think people know that, and there's a lot of talk about that. So I would imagine in the next year, 2 years, that the RFU will really be looking at how they can do that and how they can get these full-time athletes into the programme.
And we'll watch that with interest. Obviously the Welsh exam particularly might put the heat on a bit, and as I mentioned, both of these winners, they're off. We competition this morning with 2 tickets to the Ireland-Japan game, a couple of tickets apiece, all with thanks to Aldi, official fresh food partner of the RFU. Pick up the Irish Rugby home cookbook in aid of Bernardo's in Aldi today. And the second question, the second winner is off to the game this weekend. Teresa, well done to you, and it's as I said, a bit left field, Fiona, but she wants to know, who was your hero in sport when you were growing up?
Oh, that's the go. Yeah, I suppose there wasn't a lot of women playing rugby when I was growing up, so I was actually kind of soccer mad, and you know, you always craved for that female role model. So for me, I suppose it was Sonia O'Sullivan. You know, when she was doing the runs, and you'd be out cheering, it was just something for the nation, and it was kind of, I looked at that as a child, that I wanted to get to that kind of level where I had people, you know, looking up to me and wanting to strive to be an athlete. Now, I will tell you this, I'm a prop, so I absolutely couldn't run. I knew it wasn't in running, but it was going to be in some other area.
Listen, and she inspired most of the country, men and women, of course, as well. Lastly, you expect us to get off to a winning start, I presume, this weekend?
Yeah, it's a funny game, as you said. It's hard to kind of preview it, because you don't know like what Japan can bring. We know what they can offer, and we know they play like that expansive, high tempo game. I suppose with Ireland, I would imagine that they're going to come together. He's going to put, Andy Farrell's going to, from what's been leaked, it's going to be a fairly strong squad out there, and it's a matter of probably going to be a matter of set piece and dominating that contact areas where we would get Japan, and maybe slowing down their ball at times. I think we'll come away with the win, but it won't be a massive gap.
All right, brilliant, Fiona. Enjoy the games over the weekend. Thanks a million.
Thanks a million, lads. Bye-bye.
Fiona Hayes on the line there. You are watching OTB AM. We're live with Gillette, proud sponsors of Movember. Gentlemen, let's mow. And it is almost 9:08 on this Friday morning. Here's what's coming up on OTB Sports Radio over the course of the day. 1 o'clock, Jack McCaffrey sitting down with Joe will be the subject of OTB Gold. From 1, Leaders' Questions with Stuart Lancaster. After that, from 3, it's Dealing with Disappointment, our retro panel there from 4 o'clock today. Nigel Mansell in conversation with OTB is our goal from 6, and then Off the Ball live in the radio from 7 this evening. Very special piece upcoming very shortly. Up next here on OTB AM, it's a Movember chat with Sean O'Hara, running 30 marathons in 30 days. Back after this.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Liverpool fans won't want to miss our latest Cadbury FC roadshow. We're going behind the scenes at Anfield with legendary striker Robbie Fowler.
We'll also be joined by Liverpool captain and Irish international Niamh Fahey and former Liverpool midfielder and physio Richie Partridge.
It's all with thanks to Cadbury FC and their club partnerships, granting you behind the scenes access at the Premier League's biggest clubs.
Coming soon to OTB Sports social channels.
Radio and audio in Ireland has never been more powerful, more effective, or had more opportunity for growth. And now Radio Centre Ireland is here, we're looking to accelerate. To do that, we're looking for a CEO with a focus on increasing advertising investment and championing radio's unique advantages that make it so effective, flexible and impactful. We need a candidate with the experience, credibility and vision to lead, drive, influence, shape and grow this industry. Someone who will be our voice, representing and promoting radio to commercial partners and agencies alike as a medium that delivers return on investment. If that's you, we want to hear from you, and we know we will because radio works. Apply now. Visit radiocentereireland.ie.
OTB AM
with Gillette, proud supporters of Movember. Gentlemen, let's move.
9:10. It's Thursday morning and lots still to come. We're going to talk to Sean O'Hara in a minute. Just running 30 marathons in 30 days. Mick, I presume this is a feat that neither you or I can even dream about.
I thought it was good doing a few push-ups there one time, but this is on a different level. Funny hearing Fiona Hayes talking about Sonia, probably one of the most iconic memories of my childhood is watching that 2000 run in Sydney, and when she just couldn't get to Zab. I remember watching it on an old video recorder or whatever, one of those old really crappy tellies in school, and everyone was watching it. It was just unbelievable. But it's amazing the things that stick with you. And she was that much of an icon that, like Fiona's in rugby, all across all sports, and just people in general, people just idolise her.
Yeah, and it wasn't really harnessed probably at the time in a way that it should have been in terms of the capacity that she had to motivate a country, and particularly to motivate people around women's sport to get volunteers involved in it. When we were having the conversation around and get people out doing it. So yeah, loads of comments coming into us as well, by the way, across a whole range of stuff. Chris saying, why couldn't a Frawley, Byrne or Casey start this game? Wouldn't even disrupt the team, and gives the lads game time instead of 10-20 minutes when the game is over. Like, it's a fair point, but I do suspect if you're Andy Farrell in that conversation, it's just he's got to get the game locked off. It's a big preparation game in terms of New Zealand as well. Maybe there's a bit more experimentation by the time the Argentina game comes around. Maybe that's just the way he's going to approach it. But at that level, it's pretty unforgiving if you're ultimately going to decide before the game. And look, I know that that's not what you're saying, but if you're not picking your strongest team, you're sort of accepting that potentially you're going to cough up the game. A lot of love coming in from Michael Verney this morning. What are the ones I can actually read out here? One on the hurling. There was Dennis Ryan had lots of nice things to say to you about you this morning, Mick. But he's got a comment here on the hurling. Love my hurling, but coach kids the soccer dinosaur and hurling club regularly tells kids not to play soccer in the week of hurling games at 11, 12, 13 years of age.
Let them play everything they can for as long as they possibly can. I have a friend that lives over in China. One of my best mates, actually, his little girl is 5, and she's doing a different sport or activity for an hour every day after school, completely different. And he's like, I have her doing swimming, table tennis, art, all this. Would it be too much if I got her playing tennis as well? It's just like, I say, like, play everything you possibly can. I played everything I could until about 16, and there does come a point in time where you have to decide, but don't force people's hand, and you turn them off, I think, that way. Let them play as much as they can for as long as they can. Let them make their decision then.
Yeah. So what would have been in Burr at that time? But the rugby scene is strong.
No, I only played one game of rugby ever in my life. It was soccer, Gaelic, hurling. Played a lot of tennis growing up as well. But GAA was probably always going to be naturally where I was going to finish up. But I think you become so rounded playing all those other things. And like we'd always talk about, we got to a Leinster final in soccer under 15. We'd always talk back about that now. And I think we won the league and cup double in Burrtown under 16 when I was playing, and it was I think we beat Longford Town in the final. We scored 3 goals on the cup run. We won 1-0.
You did.
You know, I scored all three as well.
All right.
Enough. We only scored 3 goals, and I was more of a centre half. So I don't know how that came about, but we beat Longford, who would have been, in the probably Premier Division at the time. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but it is true. Like, Jesus, at that age, telling people that it's you got to cut off your.
You only turn people off.
Yeah.
Let people make their own decisions.
The Oisin Mullen to Geelong thing is interesting this morning. That would be, and I see there was a young fella from Westmeath that's been snapped up by one of the teams recently as well. And particularly coming from a county like that, it's such a hammer blow to what the county is about. But like, Oisin Mullen has really set the championship alight. I think it's fair enough to say, from my own point of view, over the last couple of years, that'd be a huge blow, wouldn't it?
Would be a massive blow. There was links a couple of years ago. Like, he just fits the bill perfectly. He's so athletic, he's so dynamic, he's so abrasive as well, which you need over there. I think there was a young Fermanagh guy. I think he's delaying his trip out there as well. There's a lot more. And then you have probably Stefan Ockenbars after coming back. And he'll be probably an option for Jack O'Connor now, having played under him at minor level. But I think maybe it's not seen as big of a thing now. Like, Conor McKenna came back, even Ty Kennelly came back for that year. It's probably an experience that you can't really turn down. Like, Oisin Mullen is, early 20s, 21 or 22. He's young footballer of the year last year. If it's the sort of thing where he just sees it as a glorious opportunity to go and play professional sport for maybe 2 or 3 years, maybe 10 years, but he's like, a lot of them are likely to come back. And you just have to say as well, for the likes of Zach Toohey, who has carved out a career there, like, it's phenomenal, like, because very few people last the test of time like he has.
Yeah. Look, I don't know. Mayo could do it all they have to get. Obviously, it's a tough old station for them. But the other thing is that you do see like players like Colin McShane obviously was heavily linked with the move and went for a while, didn't he? And then just decided he wanted to come back, and like, he was obviously sorted out with Tyrone, that they got him a gig and they got him sorted out. Like, you would like to think, where in that case with Colin McShane, and I'm sure with plenty of others as well, they want to remain here, that like the churn rate of players who go to the FL and actually cut out a full-time career, it's a low percentage play. Like, I could get the attractiveness of it. You're training full-time, hard to replicate here, like, but you'd like to think that where counties can try and help players get sorted with jobs or whatever it might be, that there's some sort of, look, sure, that no better community than the GAA to get motivated around that sort of stuff either.
Yeah, and there's obviously always a lot of business links with various people as well, and I'm sure that's what has prevented many from going down through the years. But a lot of went and a lot have come back. But you have to be very independent minded, I would say, to go over there and actually forge a career there, because I know homesickness and technology has maybe made that a lot easier, but it is a very difficult. It takes a certain type of individual to go over there and do that.
It's not like going to England either. Like, it's a good old trek back. Righto, it's 16 minutes past 9. It's Thursday morning. If you've been following us over the last few weeks, you can see that we're supporting Movember. I'm making a very bad attempt here that I will give you a bit more detail about starting tomorrow. Some of us, Jarrah Gilroy, had a bit of a start, and everybody else, of course. But specifically, Tommy Rooney was in conversation with Colin McShane and with Matty Rowan last week. A powerful watch, well worth checking out. And as I said, it's all part of our support and our sponsor, Gillette's proud support of Movember. Gentlemen, start your razor. So on that theme, delighted to say Sean O'Hara, who's facing into marathon number 4 on day number 4 of November. Just another 26 ahead before the month is out. Sean, good morning to you.
Morning, lads. How are you doing?
Good. You're sat in your couch. Is this
I am,
how you position yourself for 20 hours of the day now?
This is feet up, doing as little as possible, getting people to bring me food, look after me until I have to run again the next day.
I presume, though, you have those legs that pump in the cold water around you or anything there as well,
God, no? Yeah. Oh, God, yeah. I've been lucky enough for someone to look after me with a pair of those for the month. So every day after I get home, bit of food, get the legs into those, recovered for the next day.
How do you feel 4 days into 4 marathons in a row?
Mentally, I'm pretty good. Grand. Legs are a bit heavy. They're kind of like, what's going on? Never done this before. What are you doing to us? But I think it'll get to a point now where it'll just be used to it. The body will get used to it and I'll just keep going,
You're not actually a marathon runner, really?
No, not at all. So I took up running during the first lockdown, like a lot of people. Gyms closed, not much going on. We had like 2 kilometres and 5 kilometre radiuses. So there was not much you could really do or far you could go. So decided to take up a bit of running. Did that same silly 5K challenge that everyone did at some stage on Instagram. And then I actually read a book called Finding Ultra and got interested in triathlons and decided that maybe with not much else going on, this might be a chance to tick something off the bucket list. So I reached out to an old friend of a friend who coaches runners and triathletes and said I was interested in trying something like that. So started kind of gradually training and building up miles over the course of the first lockdown. Before, during Movember last year, I decided to run my first marathon as a way of raising extra money at the end of the month. I came up with the idea of for 24 hours, for every €5 donated, I would run a kilometre, thinking that maybe people would donate like an extra €100 or so. But unfortunately, it ended up being 42 kilometres worth of money being raised in the 24 hours.
Wow.
So on 4 days' notice, I went out and ran my first marathon, which was good crack. Wasn't as difficult as I thought. I think I was so pumped up on adrenaline and was so didn't know what it was going to be like. I'd never run further than 18 kilometres at that stage. So it was completely unknown to me. So I didn't know what sort of pain was going to lie ahead around the 30 kilometre mark.
Yeah.
And then from there, I kind of just kept going with the running over the course of the next year or so. And obviously wanting to be more involved in Movember this year and take a bigger step in it, decided to come up with a challenge that I thought would raise a lot of awareness and kind of money around the cause. And that led me to 30 marathons in 30 days, which is a bit insane, but sure.
Just a bit. I was going to ask, how do you train? But is it even possible to train for something like that?
Not really. There's no set rules to it. It's kind of just building up the mileage, getting enough runs in the lead up to it without actually getting any niggles or injuries. So for the last couple of months, with help my coach, I've kind of been building up to about 100-ish kilometres a week. And then I stupidly signed up for the Paris Marathon just over 2 weeks ago today, as a nice little warm up for the 30 marathon. So I was over in Paris 2 weeks ago, ran that. And then the 2 weeks after it were kind of like feet up, bit more relaxed, looking after myself before starting off on Monday just gone.
Are you doing the same route every day, Sean?
Oh God, no! I'd be bored out of my mind.
Good. I was thinking that, yeah.
So I had one route there for the first 3 days. The plan is to start and finish inside the Hole in the Wall pub in the Phoenix Park every day, and then change the route accordingly from there. The first 3 days were out along the quays, out the coast road, out towards Clontarf and Sutton, and then back through like Donamead, Artane, Coolock, and back to the Phoenix Park then. So finished that yesterday, was delighted to say goodbye to that coast road, especially with the wind yesterday. It wasn't very pleasant. And then today is a fresh little route. So I'm going to run basically around the Phoenix Park mainly today, because I have a couple of people that want to join me so they can park their cars, do whatever distance they want, and they're not too far away from their cars then, no matter where they finish up. And I also want to run and get a few pastries during my run today, so I have to fix that in somehow.
I saw you on Instagram having the donuts all right in the middle of the run.
Stop! I'm trying to eat as much as possible.
That was the next thing I was going to ask you, actually. Have you many people joining in with you as you go along?
So yeah, the first day was great. Had a good few people join in. Same again the second day, 1 or 2 people joining for good chunks of the run. Yesterday was the first day with nobody. So that was nice. And then my headphones died about 20k in. So it was a lonely half marathon to the finish. But a few joining again today, and I've had a lot of people get in touch in the lead up to it, saying they'd love to get involved even if they're running 2 or 3 kilometres, which I suppose is a big part for me as well. As it kind of creates a community vibe around it and gets more people involved, and kind of will help to raise awareness and open the kind of discussions around men's health and men's mental health, which is what I'm aiming to do with this whole challenge, really. So the more people that get involved, the better. Obviously, it'll be easier for people on the weekends when there's people aren't working. They can kind of, and then with that, obviously, I'm going to try and do most of my routes around the Phoenix Park at the weekend, so people, like I said, can park up, run whatever distance they feel like, and they're not too far away from their car then. But then during the week, it'll be kind of obviously a little bit further afield, trying to get the 42k in without being too bored.
Yeah. That's establish the what now. What's the why?
So I got involved in Movember in 2018. Was my first year ever taking part. Like, I think with a lot of people, I'd kind of seen it happening previous years, especially around, like someone mentioned yesterday, used to play rugby, and around the team environment, there's a lot about Movember, and you see it with the the autumn internationals and November internationals every year. Like the Aussies come over, the Boks come over, and they all have the Tashes going strong, and really starts the conversation around Movember. But I'd never taken part before. And then the year, maybe 18 months before Movember 2018, I'd had a rough enough time with my own mental health. I'd kind of dealt a lot with anxiety and depression that I had going on for years prior, but hadn't really done anything about it. I'd kind of just brushed it under the carpet, kept going, not paid too much attention to it. And hadn't talked to anyone about it, hadn't told anyone about my situation or what I'd kind of the difficulties I'd been going through until maybe mid 2017. It had started to bubble up a little bit worse. I talked to my partner at the time. She was the first person I kind of opened up to about it. And then from that, I looked to get a bit of help, went to counselling and therapy and stuff like that. But that kind of brought everything up to the surface that I brushed under the carpet for years previous. All my panic attacks, anxiety attacks, anything like that was just brought back up. So really struggled for the remainder of 2017 up until around Christmas. 2017 was quite tough. Then eventually kind of spoke out to my parents and kind of talked to a few other people, but I kind of left it so late that it was too late at that stage. And I ended up in St. Pat's University Hospital around Easter of 2018. I was in there for about a month and a half at the time, kind of seeing psychiatrists, psychologists, doctors, kind of just trying to manage everything that had been going on for me over the previous couple of years. And then had gotten out then a month and a half later, obviously, and had built up this kind of toolbox that a lot of people talk about like how to manage my own mental health and things that were going on. Because the big thing with it, I think a lot of people are aware now, is you don't really fix the issues. You just kind of learn to deal with them and manage them, because they can always like rear their head up again at different points. And obviously people have different triggers and different things going on for themselves that will bring their mental health struggles back to the fore years after they feel like they've really dealt with them. So coming out of hospital, I had obviously built up that toolbox that I was a bit more aware of how I felt and what made me feel the way I felt and what to look out for and what to do or what could help me if I found myself in a situation similar to I'd been in 2017, 2018. And then that obviously all just kind of led up to Movember 2018, where I wanted to find a way of like giving back to everyone who'd been there for me during the previous 12 months as a kind of thank you, or kind of like still after everything I've been through, it's still quite difficult to open up emotionally to people and be like, so soon after, say thank you for everything they'd done or been through with me. And some people just didn't see it as that big a deal of what they'd done. Like they might have come to visit me once in the hospital while I was in there, but it meant a hell of a lot to me. So it was kind of my way of saying thank you to them without actually saying thank you. So I decided to attempt to grow a mustache in 2018 and raise a bit of money and awareness around mental health. And then that was kind of my first time talking about things that had gone on with me openly, and kind of mentioning on my Instagram and to kind of friends I probably wouldn't have seen in a while but still were in touch with over social media. And then that kind of just snowballed on each year since 2018, trying to do a little bit more each year. Obviously, I mentioned last year I ran that marathon to try and raise extra money at the end of the month. I also had my legs waxed last year, which raised a couple of quid at the end. And then this year, obviously, trying to top everything again and attempt something that's a bit mad and will kind of raise a lot of attention around it. And that's kind of the main aim of it, is to get people talking and get as many people involved as possible. Just to open those conversations around mental health and men's health in general with Movember.
Can I take you back, because you've explained an extraordinary journey there. Can I take you back a little bit, because I'm conscious, Sean, that there'll be people who'll be tuned into us this morning or picking this up in the podcast over the course of the next few days who will be familiar with the path and the journey that you've spoken about, and particularly that piece where that moment before you spoke about the anxiety and the panic attacks, and the moment before you open up to your partner about what's going on. And as I said, I am conscious that there'll be people tuned into us who'll be in that mindset at the minute. What was how did you get to that position, or what advice would you have that for people who are in that space and struggling to get out of it?
I think like it's said over and over again, but just opening up and talking about it makes it so much better. It's very difficult at the time, especially for me at the time I was going through. I was like a young man who was in a very like kind of masculine environment around sports and wasn't really talking. No one was talking about their mental health. So I kind of wrongly assumed that people would look at me differently or act differently around me if I told them kind of what was going on in my head or told them how scared I was going into certain social situations that led to panic attacks and things like that. But then once you kind of get the monkey off your back and talk about it once, it really makes it a lot easier. It makes it a lot easier to talk again and again. It's that old saying of like a problem shared is a problem halved, and it really is. Because once I talked about it for the first time, I just felt this like almighty weight lifted off my shoulders, and felt more able to kind of bring it up with other people, and realized the more people I talked to, the more common it was, and the more people that are going through very similar situations to me, and people had very similar like triggers to me and things that like brought up kind of anxiety and depression with them were very similar to my situation. So like I think just opening up to someone makes it a lot easier. I will admit it's very difficult at the time because like there is unfortunately there still is a stigma attached to it, especially when you're going through anything like that. It's very hard to think about it clearly and think about it in the right frame of mind, because you do feel sometimes like you're alone and that no one kind of sees it the same way. But I guess that's what we're trying to do here, is just make it more talked about, that people know they're not alone and they're not going through a situation that people haven't gone through before, and there will always be a better day ahead and light at the end of the tunnel, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. And just on that moment, Sean, I presume that when you talk about the anxiety, I presume that it's never as high as the moment before you're bracing yourself to actually open up and speak about it. That must be quite a pivotal, obviously, yeah. and tough moment, I'm sure.
Yeah, heart pumping through your chest. That the fear of like, what's this person going to think of me? Should I say it? Trying to like thinking over and over and over again. Will I stop what I'm doing right now? Will it be fine? It'll be grand. But I think it's just, getting over that hurdle, and then the release after you talk about it for the first time is amazing. It's just like, as I said, weight off your shoulders. You feel like you do feel like a different person afterwards. So that was a big that was a milestone and a starting block on my kind of journey with my own mental health, I suppose.
And the supports are there for people, obviously, is the message. You had plenty of support and you've touched on it there, like there are even outside of, I think did I see your parents in one of the Instagram videos were there on one of the runs. Like you've got, obviously people have their own familial supports and through official channels as well.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, there's tons of supports out there for people they're widely available and easily reached, whether it be different mental health charities or different phone lines to call in. And then, of course, obviously, you have your family and friends that are constantly around and willing to listen to you. I think with the whole stigma attached to it, people are afraid their friends will think they're a burden, or they'll think that they don't have time to talk about what's bothering them. But your friends and your family will make time for you, and it's just realising that and sitting down and having that first conversation about it.
Yeah, it feels like the last sort of 18 months or 2 years that I'd say for years to come, we'll be talking about the impact of it on people's mental health as well. I'm sure about that. But it does feel to me, I don't know how you guys feel, but that people are more open to, you talk about the stigma, but I think that like the conversations now where you pass somebody in the street, a neighbour or somebody you don't know, the conversation about how you're getting on has moved from, yeah, I'm grand, how are you, to actually, geez, today hasn't been great. It feels like actually the last 18 months or 2 years has been a big win almost in that way.
Yeah, definitely. It is a funny one because like you said, I do think the last 18 months, 2 years with the pandemic and how isolated a lot of people have been will impact people's mental health for years to come. But on the other side of that, like you said, it's people are a bit more open with it and willing to chat to John down the road or whoever. They'll stop and it won't be, sure, yeah, I'm grand, the classic Irish thing. It'll be a little bit more like, oh, well, this is actually going on, or I'm having a bad day or a tough day at work. And I think people are more aware of all the kind of difficulties that are going on that are associated with working from home or not being in the office, not seeing people as regularly, not being able to travel and see family who are living further afield. So I think people are more aware of that, so it makes it easier to kind of broach that subject as well and talk about it a little bit easier, How therapeutic do you find exercise, Sean, for you? Exercise is a massive, massive part of it for me. I'm actually, funnily enough, I'm not a huge fan of running. Would you believe? Never have been. It's always been that thing of like, either it's nice and slow and boring, or else it's like pushing yourself too hard and it's like damn, this hurts. There's never a happy medium, but in general, exercise has been massive for me. Like whether it be playing team sports back when I was younger, or going to the gym and kind of taking part in, like, I did CrossFit for a couple of years before I started the running at the start of the pandemic, and just getting out there and kind of being with people, you know, and kind of having the chats as well as getting kind of those endorphins that are released alongside exercise. They really help, and it's been a massive part for me over the last 2 years, and kind of managing my mental health and kind of dealing with it on days that I'm struggling or having a tougher day, you know, just getting outside. And the only thing about the running side of it is, at least with that, you're getting outside and getting some fresh air as well, which is massive and really helps. But with the signing up to the idea of doing a triathlon last year, I think the cycling was the one that I kind of got bitten by the bug of, and loved that. And that's like great for the endorphins, great for enjoying yourself, and you kind of get to see a bit further afield as well with a cycle. So I really kind of loved that over the course of the last 2 years. But unfortunately, the last couple of months have been heavily focused on running. So
yeah,
I've missed that part.
Yeah, I'll be with you on the running side. We'll be keeping a close eye on events. You've been brilliant with your time this morning, and brilliant to bring us inside your story, Sean. So thanks a million for that. There's a lot of support coming in for you as well, by the way. And I should mention a couple of comments. One of them from Jack Owens on YouTube here. Some man for one man. Hugely inspiring story, which will help a lot of people. And that was very much the purpose of us wanting to have you on this morning. So well done on that.
Cheers,
and
lads.
one from Ross Galvin as well, saying huge respect to Sean O'Hara, an inspiration to all Mo Bros doing Movember, and everyone else out there as well. Keep up the great work, lad. You're making us proud. Mo love, Ross. So there's loads of comments on that tone coming in. What time are you out at this morning?
Looking to kick off about 10:30 this morning. So I've been starting at 10 every other morning, but obviously made an exception this morning to talk to you lads. So I'll get out at 10:30 and hopefully be finished-ish around 3 o'clock.
Good man. Well, we appreciate that. At Sean O'Hara 2 on Instagram, am I right?
Yeah, that's the one. Thanks very much, lads. Really
and
appreciate it.
Movember.ie if people want to get along. And you don't have to be as crazy as Sean and go and run that 30 marathons in 30 days. Right?
Definitely not. Wouldn't recommend it.
There's other stuff to do as well. Good man. Well done. And best of luck over the next 26 days. Sean O'Hara there running 30 marathons in 30 days. And absolutely 100% fair play to him. But I ain't ever doing that. That's if I ever get to manage one marathon. And I'll be delighted with myself, Mick. But good on him. And as I said, Movember.ie if you want to get along and contribute to that. That's pretty much it from us for this morning. Thanks a million for coming in, Mick. Enjoy the Longford football final.
Yeah, one of many this weekend. Yeah, looking forward to it. We've 2 county finals in our own club on Sunday as well, so I'm hoping to get to the first one. I'm going to miss the second one, unfortunately, but I'll be there in spirit. Good man. Well, look, enjoy it, and we'll chat again. Great to see you in person again after 2 years. Yeah, exactly. So good man. Michael Verney with us in studio this morning. OTB AM with Gillette, proud sponsors of Movember, by the way. Gentlemen, let's mow. Remember that. And remember as well to subscribe to the Off the Ball YouTube channel and the OTB AM podcast. Tomorrow we're going to be having a sit-down feature interview with the Manchester United legend Patrice Evra. We're going to talk to Alan Quinlan about the weekend's rugby, and we'll have much more as well. We're going to play you out this morning with some John Egan, the Ireland defender, in conversation with Nathan on the show last night.
Now, very happy to welcome live to the show Sheffield United and Republic of Ireland international, of course. John Egan is with us. John, thanks for the time. Great to have you on the show.
No problem, how's things?
Yeah, very well. Here, come here. Congratulations, by the way, because you were announced FAI Senior International Player of the Year 2020. It was announced last month, but with COVID, no ceremony, no round of applause, no posing with the trophy, night out for the family. But that's a big achievement. I hope you're not going to brush that away and say you don't care about individual honours. That's a great thing to win.
Yeah, listen, huge honour, especially being a proud Irishman, come from a proud family. It's fantastic to be recognised, I suppose, and to win that award was very special.
Were you expecting it?
No, not at all. I just, you don't really think about them things, when you're a player and stuff. And just woke up one morning, seeing I had a message saying I got it, and then obviously it was on Twitter and stuff, so all my friends and stuff were texting me. So yeah, it was a pleasant surprise.
Good man. To be fair, it would be a touch arrogant if you'd answered that question with yes.
Yeah, I'm not Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo, so I don't think I can be thinking like that.
So listen, I guess the point of the chat is to check in and see how the season's going, and obviously tomorrow week, hell of a big game. I was just glancing through a few different bits. The start of this year, you dislocated your toe, I saw, which is not the most important thing I'm going to chat to you about here, don't worry. But that doesn't sound like fun. Out for 8 weeks. I've never had the pleasure. What's that like?
Yeah, it was a bit of a weird one, really. I blocked the shot, played West Ham away, blocked the shot, and as soon as I blocked it, the follow through kind of caught me, and I just knew, looked down, I knew there was something out of place in my foot. So the pain wasn't really sore. It was just kind of the sickly feeling of feeling like a bone or a joint or something is out of place. So it was a weird one. The stretcher came out and everything. So there was, people watching it from back home and stuff were very worried. But, luckily for me, it wasn't a break. It was a dislocation. And got away with one, really. Could have been a lot worse. So, I only missed 5 or 6 games, had an operation, and, played the last 9-10 games of the season. Right. So it was good to be back.
So dislocation's better result than a break in that instance?
In some areas, yeah, I suppose. And where I got it, I thought I might have broke my metatarsal or something, which is 3 or 4 months and would have been me for the season. But luckily, the doctor kind of pulled it back into place quick enough to make sure I didn't need a big operation or anything. So it was, it was bittersweet, I suppose. Bad to get injured, but luckily enough, it wasn't a bad one.
Yeah. Look away now, John, as I shove your dislocated toe back into its spot.
Yeah, one of them. Grit the teeth, get on with it.
I was just having a glance at your record. In fairness to you, you play a lot of games. You don't seem to get injured, or if you do, you play through the pain a little bit. So just to give people a sense of that, going right back to, say, League One days with Gillingham in 2015, 45 games in the league. These are just league games that year. League One with Gillingham, 36 games in 16. Brentford in the Championship, 17, 34 games. Brentford in the Championship, 2018, 33 games. And then Sheffield United, 19 in the Championship, 44 games. Premier League in 20, 36 games. And then last year in the Premier League, 31 appearances. And that's with the toe, which we've discussed at length already. And so I looked in all competitions. You've your highest season was 52 matches, all competitions. The lowest you've had any year is 34. That's pretty good, Are you generally quite lucky with injury? Or are you playing through pain a lot of the time? What's it like as a professional footballer in those terms?
Yeah, listen, you try and make yourself available for every game you can. Sometimes during the season you might have a niggle that, you can get through without making it worse. So, you kind of take a few painkillers and stuff. You might have a little flu or a bit of illness that you want to, it would take a lot to kind of knock you out of the team, really. You don't want to give your place up and give someone else a chance to do it. So I think kind of mentally from my head anyway, when I'm approaching games, if I've something, maybe a bit wrong with me, but I think I can play and do a good job, then, I'd always try and play through it. Obviously I've been lucky enough that I've had, a good run of games in each of those seasons, and, it's important to try and look after your body off the field as well. So, recovery, rest, is a big part of playing it too.
How often would you be in the tunnel before a game, league game, and feeling 100%?
Not often. I suppose you could probably count in one or two hands, how many times that's happened in my career. I played over 300 games, and a lot of it could be anything. You play that many games, you could even just be exhausted, but you get on with it. You have your caffeine tablets, you might have a can of Red Bull or something, anything to kind of get you into the zone and get you feeling alive and awake for games. But yeah, you're constantly kind of trying to manage your body, playing that many games, and kind of becomes a routine, really. After the game, you have to eat well, you have to recover, get the right sleep, and not do too much away from football. That kind of takes your energy.
Championship is such a slog as well. We had Damien Delaney on the show, and I remember him saying that the year he was promoted with Crystal Palace potentially extended his career, because in a perverse way, playing Premier League is less of a treadmill than the Championship by comparison. So you've experienced both. How would you compare the demands of Premier League football versus Championship, be that physically or in terms of the quality of the opposition, the whole experience? What's a season like, Premier League versus Championship, on the body, on the mind, everything?
I think they're both similar. Obviously, you've more league games than the Championship, a lot more midweek games. Premier League, you've a lot of kind of Saturday to Saturday, or you have a week's break between most games. So I suppose games-wise, it's not as tough, but the demands are tougher because you're playing against better players and better teams, and you're probably doing doing a bit more running, and you're getting punished if you're playing against quality players if you make mistakes. And I suppose mentally it's probably more demanding in the Premier League, but from a physical point of view, the Championship is it's non-stop. If you win a game or you lose a game, it's quick to kind of forget about it because you have another game in 2 or 3 days. So listen, they're both challenging in both ways, but from a player's point of view, you just have to be looking forward to the next game all the time and doing everything you can to be ready for the team.
What would you miss about Premier League football?
You miss playing against the best teams in the world and going out and doing well. And the first year, especially when we went up, we were in the top 6, top 7 for most of the season. So we were gone from being promoted from the Championship to fighting for Europe. So the buzz that created, and we were obviously hit with COVID and the lockdown and having to do a season with no fans, which kind of went by. You kind of feel like you've lost out a bit as a player, playing in the biggest stages with no fans. So that was a bit annoying. But listen, the Championship nowadays as well is a huge league. We went to Nottingham Forest last night, 25,000 plus at the game. There's huge clubs in the Championship, and as long as you're playing football and trying to get results, you feel blessed to be able to do this as your job.
You've gone over to the UK in your late teenage years and worked your way through the lower leagues and the Championship and promotion into the Premier League. So it's not like it suddenly clicked for you as an 18-year-old playing against superstars from that age. Did you have any kind of pinch me moments in the Premier League where you're standing beside a certain player or you're in the tunnel against a certain team and you think, this is a bit surreal to be against this fella?
Because I kind of, I made my Premier League debut at 26, so I had a lot of, I had a lot of football played by then. Yeah. I played for Ireland, I played a lot of Championship games, and kind of, I was probably better off that I didn't make it when I was 18, because I remember being on the bench for Sunderland. I was 19, I think, against Man United, and I was in the tunnel, and Ferdinand, Rooney, Evra, all the big names, and I was kind of pinching myself, thinking, if I come on here and playing against these lads. But I think by the time I made my debut, I was more experienced, played a lot of games, and there was nerves for the first game. Obviously coming up, not knowing what to expect, but we got off to such a good start that the nerves kind of went, and we were going out there on a level playing field. We were putting it up to the best teams in the league, and I suppose it's only now when you look back on it you think how well we did, and at the time you're just out there to try and get a result, and it was a really good mindset to be in, that you weren't going there as a tourist to the big ground. You were going there to compete and try and get points.
John, what is it about the real top guys that separates them? Like, what is it about Salah? What is it about Aguero that makes them so unbelievable?
Quality and mentality. These guys at the top, they've got fierce drive and fierce mentality to keep getting better, and you make a mistake against them, you get punished. I suppose they're masters of their craft. You can see that you don't get to the top without working hard, and they obviously do a lot of finishing, a lot of work and training to make them the players they are, and that's why sometimes you kind of you don't appreciate it until you're kind of there and you're up against them, and you see how good some people really are.
So you mentioned you were playing last night. So I don't know if you saw any of Bruno Fernandes and Ronaldo last night.
I saw the goals. I only saw the goals, the highlights. Yeah. Okay.
So tomorrow week, big game. Hello? Obviously. You gone? Sorry, I was just saying. Well, tomorrow week. I mean, it's there's two for you. So, what was your experience of being up against that caliber? Those two, for instance, in the Algarve, because for a lot of the game, it was going very, very well, and Ronaldo was as quiet as you could hope to keep Ronaldo, and then, as is his habit, he seems to pop up and strike. So, what was the experience of playing against somebody of that caliber, for instance? What's your memory of trying to tackle him and keep him quiet?
Yeah, it's obviously tough. They've a really good squad, top players, and we went there with the belief that we could cause an upset. All week in training we were working on things, and suppose the game didn't get off to the best start. We gave away a penalty, but you know, Gavin made an unbelievable save, and I think we just grew in confidence from that. You know, we started executing the game plan really well. Took the lead just before half time, and you know, with a bit of luck, we might have gone 2 up in the second half, and it would have been totally different. But you know, as you said there, Ronaldo had other ideas, and you know, at the very end of the game, he caught us twice, and you know, sometimes you got to hold your hands up. There's quality players who can do things like that, and I think we gave a really good account of ourselves. You know, we went there with belief. You know, we played out of our skin, really played really well, and we're really unlucky not to get a result. So, you know, we're going to try and work hard in training next week to go out there and get a result next Thursday.
I saw you saying of the goal which you scored, and I'm sure that's an unbelievable moment, unbelievable thrill, that usually you'd go back post. Was it Shane Duffy said to you, you run front post this time and see what happens, just kind of on a whim?
Yeah, I think so, yeah, because usually going back post, nothing really gets over Duffy, so I thought there's no point in going back to the back. But yeah, he just said go near post this time. And I actually said to Andrew, I think Andrew was next to me, Andrew Mabamadelli, and I said, oh, go get yourself a debut goal. And then I ended up scoring. He ran over and he said, geez, you go get yourself a goal, will you? So it was quite funny. But no, it was a brilliant moment. Like, took the lead just on half time, and we felt like we were growing into the game as well. So it's great for confidence. It's just unfortunate we didn't get a result to go with it, to be honest. You know, we really felt like we played well enough to get a result that night. And it was heartbreaking after. I
can imagine. Was I reading your mum was in the crowd?
Yeah, it was mad, really. Like, I literally scored, started running towards Jamie, and then I just looked to the right to see, you know, look into the fans, maybe give the Portugal fans a shush. But I just seen my mum. My mum was just up there waving her hands, like screaming. So I just stopped and just started screaming at her. It was funny.
Wow.
It was,
what a moment.
Yeah, it was an unbelievable moment. Yeah, probably the best moment I've had in the football pitch, to be fair.
Oh God, I'd say by a distance. Because your mum is a League of Ireland medal, so she knows her stuff. She's watching you with a critical eye.
Oh yeah, very critical. You know, when we, not that game, but when we tend to lose games, you know, I wouldn't be ringing her straight after the game because I wouldn't want to be listening to what she has to say. But no, she loves it. She's really proud, and you know, every time I put on the Ireland shirt, you know, she's so proud, and you know, she loves it, and she comes to all the games she can, so it's good.
And so, when you're heading off to England as a teenager, is she keen for you to go? Is she saying, look, you gotta, you know, go for this, if she's big into her football?
To be honest, no, she was kind of keen on me staying, you know, do the leaving cert and, you know, kind of stick around, you know, try go after that. But kind of had it in my head as soon as I was offered a contract, I wanted to go, and, you know, my dad, you know, really wanted me to go as well. So it was a tough decision. But, you know, it was too good of an opportunity to turn down at the time. And, you know, I think once she sorted out the education side of things with Sunderland, that, you know, I'd still get my education. You know, that was kind of the only hurdle I had to clear to get her on side. So, no, she was obviously sad to see me go, but she knew that I was going after something that I really wanted to.
And was Dad saying stay as well, or did he think maybe take a chance?
He just said to me, look, I believe you're good enough to go. I believe you're good enough to make it over there. So, you know, go over, work hard, and, you know, I'll back you 100%. He said, because I was obviously toying with the idea of playing Gaelic football and hurling, and he kind of basically said to me, look, I've won everything in Gaelic football and stuff, and, you know, you kind of don't really have anything to show for it in a way. Like, you got memories and medals and stuff, but he said you've got an opportunity to go over there, and, you know, it's your living, you're playing a sport you love to play, and, you know, he said if I had the opportunity, I'd go. So I suppose listening to my dad, who was my hero and, you know, one of my best friends, really saying that, it was, you know, kind of put my mind at ease.
Wow, that's some belief to have in your son, isn't it? That's amazing.
Yeah, no, he was good.
Most parents, I'd say, are saying, oh look, geez, it's a 1 in a million chance, are you sure? You know, I mean, to say, God, you're good enough, go for it. Amazing.
That's the thing, yeah. Listen, it's the success rate is really low, but I suppose if you do have that belief in yourself, and, you know, if you want to do it, I suppose the decision was left up to me, really. Yeah. If you want to do it, do it. Like, I was mature enough. I was 16 going on 17. Like, you know, I felt like I had a mature head on me for that age. You know, I'd gone over on trial 5 or 6 times to different clubs, and, you know, I kind of seen the level myself, and, you know, I knew I'd work hard, as hard, if not harder, than anyone over there to do it. So I knew if I had that side right, and that I had a good chance.
You talked there about, you know, your dad being your best friend, and, you know, that kind of advice, and I can only imagine the effect his passing has on you and the family. I must say, it crossed my mind watching you scoring the goal. On those great nights, like the big highlights, if it's not too personal a question, would you feel his loss more acutely? Would you be thinking of him on the flight home, God, thinking, geez, you know, moment like that? Or maybe it's a Tuesday morning more so when you think of it, I don't know.
Yeah, 100%. Like it's funny, like, as the biggest highs, you know, sometimes you think of them as lows when you think like that. Like, you know, I'll be speaking to my family after the game, and, you know, the first thing I'd say is, oh, imagine Dad was there. Like, you know what I mean? You just kind of say it, just comes out.
Yeah.
And especially in Portugal, like in the Algarve, because we used to go there, like, to Alvor we were there a lot as kids, like maybe once every summer. Myself, my mum, my dad, my sister, and, you know, myself and my dad would go off playing football. Wherever we could find a pitch, or a sand pitch or a gravel pitch, and, you know, to score my first Hurling goal there then even meant more, because, you know, it was all I was thinking of when we actually flew there. And, you know, instead of the game being on in Lisbon, it was on in the Algarve, and you know, it was crazy. You know, that's good. They're the nights when you feel like he's looking down on you. You know, and it's a strange feeling, but it was very special.
Yeah, no, I can imagine, because often, you know, it's on those special days, someone's wedding day or graduation, or, well, not everyone scores for Ireland, but they're the days that are, I think you used the word bittersweet.
Yeah. No, definitely, yeah. I suppose, like everything, you know, you're always thinking, what if, but, you know, I'm lucky enough to have him as a dad, and, you know, I was extremely lucky to have my mum in the crowd that night. You know, so I suppose when you look at it that way, you know, it's just a feeling of kind of being a bit blessed, and, you know, as long as, you know, people are healthy around you, that's the main thing.
Yeah. So she had done well to travel over, I think. I don't know how many Irish fans were in the stadium. I take it she'll be there tomorrow week. She gets to her fair share of games, does she?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. There's a big crowd up from Cork and Kerry tomorrow week, all dying to go to the game. So, yeah, listen, hopefully we can put on a really good performance.
There's a text in, because we mentioned you were coming on. It's funny, this text has come in 4 times. Does he support Kerry or Cork?
I knew that was coming.
Did you? Okay. It's a common question to you, I suppose.
Yeah, listen, growing up in my house, it was Kerry football. So naturally, you know, I was going to Munster finals wearing a Kerry jersey, going to All-Ireland semi-finals, All-Ireland finals, you know, being around the team after the finals. My dad would be going to the functions, I'd be there with him. So, you know, fanatic Kerry Gaelic football supporter all my life, given, you know, what my dad has done. My mum's a Kerry woman as well, so that's kind of what I've been brought up to be. On the other hand, living in Cork, you know, seeing the passion Cork people have for their football and hurling teams, you know, especially hurling, there's fierce passion for their hurling down there, and they were very successful when I was growing up as well. So I'd end up going to all the Cork games with my buddies, all the Cork hurling games, and, you know, it's an easy one to say Kerry in the football and Cork in the hurling, but that is what I am. That is what I suppose, Cork and Kerry, you could say. But listen, some of my friends, you know, they've broken into the Cork senior football and hurling teams, and, right, you know, I'll support them all the time. You know, I want them to do well, and I suppose if Kerry aren't going well in the football, then I'd probably turn into a Cork football fan. And if Cork fall off a cliff in the hurling and Kerry start booming, then I'll turn into a Kerry hurling fan.
Fair enough. Come here, Cork lads are taking over this Irish team, by the way.
Yeah, to be fair, it just shows the work they're doing down in the Cork Schoolboys League. You know, growing up, it was always really competitive. There was always some really good players, even my age, you know, that probably could have went across the water. Good club mate of mine, Damien Callan, he was in goal for my schoolboy team growing up. He was as good as any keeper I've seen in Ireland, you know, coming through them age groups. And, you know, he went down to Gaelic football and hurling. Paddy's played for Cork hurlers now a number of years after playing for the footballers, and, you know, shows what an athlete he is. And I think Cork is just such a sporting county. You know, you got Gaelic football, hurling, you know, football, rugby, you know, basketball. They play everything down in Cork, and it's a really good environment to grow up in, because you end up just playing every sport, and you can kind of take bits from every sport.
Yeah, I can imagine. So the last 2 Irish performances were brilliant, I think is the only way you could describe them. Like, it felt like a real step forward. There's I was going to say a pressure, that's not the right word, or responsibility, but there's an onus on you at the back to get the ball and start playing play passing football. How are you finding that? Are you enjoying that under this manager? Because it seems certainly like the last, the Qatar match in particular, the team just it looked like they were really enjoying themselves.
Yeah, definitely. And, it's obviously taken a bit of time. The manager and the coaching staff are brilliant. They've come in with, clear ideas. The sessions are really good of, what's expected from us in training and, to take it into the game. And I think you can kind of see the last few months, every camp we've kind of improved and we've grown as a team. The last camp was brilliant. Everything clicked. We went away to Azerbaijan, which, is a tough place to go, and to win 3-0 away from home was brilliant. And, you could see the confidence we took from that game into the Qatar game, who, Qatar aren't a bad side. And we just had a game plan and, the lads executed the game plan perfectly. We played some really, really good football.
Yeah.
And it's a testament to everyone, really, the manager, the staff, and all the players, because, everyone is dying to improve and to learn and to try win games. And, we all know results, is the main thing. And, we want to be able to put in good performances and get results. And I think you can see us growing as a team.
No, I think that's fair. I think it's a long time since we saw those kind of performances in the most recent window. So look, fingers crossed obviously for Portugal tomorrow week and Luxembourg. One last one. I noticed, so obviously captaincy has come with Ireland and 2 years after your debut, the first time you were made captain of Ireland, you've done it plenty of times since obviously and recently as well. You were made captain at Brentford as a player, captain at Sheffield United. Your manager was singing your praises, your new manager Jukanovic, as a player and as a captain recently. I don't know if you saw any of that, but he was talking you up in a huge way. What kind of captain are you? Why do you think maybe different managers are looking to you to be a captain? What do you try and bring to that role?
I don't know really. I just be me. I just try to lead by example. Really, try to just do my job as best as I can every day. I try to train well and make sure my body, is ready for the games. And when I play games, I try to do well and be consistent. I don't know really why. Obviously I've been captain at a few places now, but it's a responsibility that I like. And
right.
Whether you have the armband or not, it doesn't really change me. I just go out and do my job every day and train, and every game I get to play and just try to do it as well as I can.
Good man. Well, listen, you're doing something right. Best of luck next week, obviously. Everybody going to be watching. I hope it goes well. John Egan, great to have you in the show. Really appreciate it, John, your time. Thanks so much.
No worries. Thanks a million.
Cheers.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, proud supporters of Movember. Gentlemen,